Transfer fees up. Season tickets up. High prices up. Why the bloomin' heck are you still up?
Do you know what time it is?
Topical sport and debate worth staying awake for. The Two Mics.
All night long.
On Talk Sport.
All night long.
Look at the light.
That is why people tune in.
Yeah.
People don't tune in to keep hearing you whinging about the clock.
They don't tune in at all. It's all digital now.
Now, the thing is, because I'm smarter than the average bear,
Yeah.
I've been driving down the countryside looking at farms.
Yeah. This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mics. It's time to say a very good morning to a very happy-looking Mr. Mike Porky Parry. Very good morning to you, Mr. Parry.
Yeah, good morning, Mike. I wouldn't say I was happy. I mean, I'm delighted always, of course, when England get off to a great start
Yes, of course,
in
yeah.
a test match in the first day. In fact, really, to be honest, it became a bit of an anticlimax in the second half of the day.
Yeah.
Having battered the Australians into absolute submission,
Yeah.
we then kind of, anticlimaxed it by stumbling, didn't we?
Couple of wickets,
But nevertheless, we've got 7 wickets in hand, only a couple of runs in it. We should be set for a great test match. But you're trying to insinuate and trying to suggest.
I'm not trying to insinuate anything.
You are, and your opener there was trying to, sort of make fun again, that I've actually got something right.
Well, I'm just suggesting
You
that
see,
you
you
may have
can't
got one,
accept-
You may have got one right.
You can't accept that actually my all-pervading knowledge on many, many subjects stretches over such a vast area, the size mentally and psychologically of maybe the Russian steppes.
The Russian steppes.
Yeah, you can't accept that with such a broad knowledge of so many subjects, I occasionally get something wrong, but mostly get everything right.
Well, in terms of your predictions, though, generally speaking, in sporting-wise,
Yes.
you don't normally get that many right, do you?
Okay, well, do you mind if we listen to my prediction then for what I thought would happen in the third test? Do you
Yes.
mind if we listen to that?
Well, let's what from
Can we have
yesterday.
Can we have a listen to that, please?
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to predict what's going to happen in the third test, okay?
Excellent,
That
yeah.
starts in a few hours' time, so let me tell you what's
Edgbaston,
happening.
right?
Edgbaston,
Yeah.
indeed. I think Ian Bell's going to be a huge success. Remember, Ian Bell and Joe Root have got to be successful in their new positions, 3 and 4, of course,
Yeah.
because if we are victim to another top-order collapse, which have been a blight on England in recent years, then we're going to be done for. So all eyes will be on Bell. If he delivers runs at 3, he can win England the Ashes and prolong a test career that's brought him 2,200. Right.
So
How about
that was not actually you saying they were going to win this the third test, was it?
I said they're going to win the Ashes.
You said they're going to win the whole thing.
To win the Ashes, they've got to win the third
They
test.
have got to win the third test.
Exactly. Thank you very much
I mean,
indeed.
as far as the prediction goes, I mean, it was okay, but what you were saying was Bell has to do
No, it's
well.
brilliant.
And
It's
Bell
brilliant.
has done reasonably well so far.
He's done extremely well.
But
He's
it's
got
very early
his
days
40th
yet, isn't
half
it?
century.
But it's
eh?
very early days. I mean, it could end up as a draw. They could win the Ashes.
I very
even if
much
they draw
doubt that. You demonstrate now your complete ignorance of the game of cricket. I very much doubt that indeed.
Well, you heard what the Australian top scorer said, Chris Rogers, there, saying that we have we of course respect the English, but conditions change. It's one game at a time. Anything can happen.
What did them in was the weather, because when you're trying to concentrate on an innings and get some pace and power into it and some consistency, and you're being taken off every sort of 60 minutes or something, that was brilliant. That was the first time ever that an Australian captain who chose to bat made a mistake. But how was he to know?
But Jimmy Anderson was brilliant, wasn't he? I mean, it was all really, he was the hero of the day, really.
And Finn, he comes back and, he'd been in the wilderness for such a long time. Bang! And I particularly like the wicket that skittled the stumps.
Yes.
That's
always good to see.
LBW's catches there are all right.
Yeah.
But what we'd really like to see is one of the world's top batsmen being bamboozled by a ball that eludes him, gets through, and whoosh, splatters the wickets
Yeah, it was
all over the
extraordinary.
place.
I mean, it was almost as extraordinary as England's collapse in the second test, wasn't it, really?
Yes, it was, yes, yeah. But anyway, it was a brilliant day. Now, there's something else.
And I'd be very happy if your prediction comes true and England
you
do
won't.
win the
No,
Ashes.
you won't. You'll hate it.
All I'm saying is it's quite unusual for you to get something right in a sport which you don't really know that much about, which is cricket.
You see, you're saying it again.
What?
Are you mad? I mean, I predicted what was going to happen.
Yeah.
It happened almost to the letter.
Well, not quite.
And now all you can say is, that's very unusual.
Well, you didn't predict that Australia
I don't remember
would-
you making a prediction
Well,
for
you
the
didn't-
test match.
Well,
You
no,
know why? You know so little about cricket, mate. You wouldn't know. Somebody gave you a bat, you wouldn't know which way up to hold it.
Well, you made a prediction because you make a prediction every day on something that's going to happen. And, we can go back all through those predictions and see whether any of the other ones have come true.
What
but
like?
This one, well, the one,
What like?
you said we were going to be in some kind of new global ice age by 2030, didn't you? Or 2020?
Well, it's not 2030 yet.
Well, exactly. So when we get to 2030, if we're both still around,
Yeah,
I
well, you
imagine
won't be.
it probably won't be an ice age.
You'll die of consumption
All
by
I'm
then.
saying is that all
sadly.
of the
or maybe
thank you,
not.
Thank you very much. All of the kind of evidence evidence that we have on all of your predictions in the past is that you probably get more wrong than you get right, and I don't see why you should.
Well,
deny that.
you see, do you know what this is called, Mike? This is called head above the parapet syndrome.
Yes.
And that is that if you're bold enough and knowledgeable enough to be able to make some predictions about what happens in life, to assess all the information, to get the facts, pull them all together, put them into order, and then boldly go where not many people go, that is actually saying something positive,
Yes.
then you are always going to get shot down.
Like when you predicted that Andy Murray would beat Roger Federer.
Well, I mean, that wasn't my fault.
What do you mean it wasn't your fault?
I'm not Andy Murray. There's nothing more I could do than just tell you what should have happened.
No, of course, but that's just one of those predictions that sometimes don't go the right way.
I refuse to take responsibility for that.
Well, anyway, it's a good result for England. It's a great day for England. We'll be talking to an Australian journalist coming up very, very shortly.
Yeah.
We'll get the view from Australia because they must not be very happy about everything that's happened.
Do you think that Australian journalist will know who Peter O'Sullivan is?
I don't know whether he will. He might do.
He's an amazing man, Peter O'Sullivan.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I'll tell you a story. When I was 19, I went down to the Rudee course in Chester, the Chester Race Course.
Right.
It's the only circular racetrack in the world.
Is it right?
It's right next to the River Dee. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful setting because the Roman walls are the border of it at the top of the bowl.
Right.
And then you go down into it, and it's obviously it's a racetrack. It's right next to the River Dee. It's the most picturesque in the world, I think. And I went there to cover the Chester May meeting when they have the Chester Cup and the Chester Vase.
And was that the first time you'd been sent to the races to cover them?
Yeah, it was, yeah. And I went into the press box, and I didn't even know what a Group 1 race was.
Right.
Compared to a handicap or a maiden or anything. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about horses.
Didn't they give you some kind of quick sort of briefing before you went?
No.
And said, go and do this.
No. When you start on a weekly paper and you're suddenly appointed deputy sports editor, then occasionally you have to go and cover a Chester football match.
And that's what you were.
I was deputy sports editor.
How did you get to be deputy sports editor if you didn't know about racing?
Because there was nobody else around to do it. And I knew a little bit about football, so I had an Everton season ticket, so that qualified me to be the deputy sports editor.
Oh, okay.
So, but I didn't know the names.
Competition then.
I didn't know the names of any Chester players when I went to do my first Chester match because I hadn't been to see them for about 6 years. But anyway, I go down there and I'm literally, I thought, I don't know, how am I going to put all this together? Because it was Wednesday afternoon and the deadline for copy was Thursday lunchtime for the paper that came out on Friday morning.
Okay.
It's a weekly paper.
Well, it's not that much of a pressurised deadline, then. You didn't have to do it that day.
Well, no, except that when the racing had finished and I was supposed to have, taken details of all the races and what happened and all that kind of, I just had a massive sort of information in my notebook and I didn't know where to start.
Right.
And I was thinking to myself, I don't know, I had to go into the office the next morning, Thursday, and then knock out a piece.
Did you not have a race card that you could just knock down who'd won it?
Well, yeah, I did, but I mean, in terms of who the jockeys were and what their histories were, I didn't have a clue.
Right.
And I didn't know what I was going to do. And anyway, an old gentleman came over. When I say old, he's like about 60. He had glasses on. He had a fantastic voice. And he came over and he said, "Hello, young man, how are you?" And I said, "Oh, look," I said, "do you mind if I just ask you something?" He said, "Yeah, sure, what is it?" And I said, "What did this mean? And what did that mean? And if that guy won that, why was that so good? And why was everybody cheering about that? And who was expected to win that? And what's that?" And he said, "Oh, let me help you out." He said, "Have you done this before?" I said, "It's the first time I've ever done it." He said, "Oh, well, look." And anyway, it was Peter O'Sullivan.
And you didn't know that it was him at the time?
I had some awareness of the fact that he was something quite big in racing, and I gradually started to recognise his voice because the only race in those days I'd ever watched was the Grand National because that took place at Liverpool, which is nearby at Aintree. And but anyway. He literally wrote my piece, or at least said to me, "Well, look, the best story this afternoon was that, and the most exciting race was that one, and the most unexpected finisher, and the jockey who did best." And he just sorted it all out for me. So instead of having this huge jumble of notes and all that kind of stuff, he gave me 10 ideas and 10 lines.
What a very nice man.
Down, absolutely. And then I went in on Thursday morning, after getting bladderated on Wednesday night with race girls and that sort of stuff. And I wrote this fantastic piece, and everybody in the paper was amazed. So we didn't know you had such fantastic knowledge of horse racing.
Extraordinary.
And I said, well, I keep my my light under a bushel.
Did you not tell them that you'd had some help from Peter O'Sullivan?
No, I didn't actually.
Why not?
I didn't want to give him any credit for it. I thought that, I wanted them to think that I was a genius.
Had any of this material kind of stuck in your brain so that you could go to another race and then do it again?
Well, not really.
Not really.
Because every race meeting is so different, isn't it? You don't get the same horses, you don't get the same jockeys. But, I mean, he literally sorted it all out for me in about 5 minutes by telling me what the highlights of the day were. I mean, you're absolutely right. I could see from a race card which horse won, but I didn't know if that horse had won 3 previous races or whether the horse was expected to fail or win, or you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And he just interpreted it all for me. It was brilliant.
And you didn't give him any credit for it?
Well, I kind of, in years later on, when I became an established journalist, I told the story that how Peter O'Sullivan helped me.
Yeah.
But I was a bit reluctant to say that I was so useless I had to rely on some guy who writes for the Daily Express, because in those days he was a commentator, a race caller. He used to do the races, and he wrote a column in the Daily Express, which was the paper that my dad had taken all his life. You see what I mean? Right. So I when I told my father that I'd seen the great Peter O'Sullivan, he couldn't believe it. In fact, he called me a liar. He said, no, he wouldn't bother talking to people like you. That's what he actually said. He said, why would he waste his time talking to you? Yeah. I said, well, he wasn't wasting his time. We're all fellow journalists. And my dad laughed, journalists? Peter O'Sullivan's a journalist. You just write a few little scrubby notes for a local weekly rag, and all this kind of stuff.
Terrible thing to say.
Yeah.
Well, there's lots of great tributes to Peter O'Sullivan who died yesterday. We'll have a look at some of those coming up shortly. We're going to talk some more cricket, and we've got loads more to do. Porky Vision coming up tonight as well.
Excellent.
This is TalkSport. We are the two mics. This is TalkSport. We are the two mics. Manchester United taking on PSG a little bit later on, around about 2 o'clock. And then the MLS All-Stars are playing Spurs as well, so we'll keep you updated on all of those.
The MLS All-Stars are playing Spurs. Where's that going on?
Well, it's going on over in the United States of America.
Right.
But unfortunately, Steven Gerrard's not playing. Frank Lampard's not playing.
The Lampard thing's starting to get a bit intriguing, isn't it?
Yeah, he's been injured now, sort of, for a
I
long time,
mean, when he first left Chelsea, he was fabulously fit and turning out for Manchester City and scoring goals against his own club.
Right.
And everybody in America was saying, well, that'll be fantastic when he eventually gets here. He eventually gets there and he hasn't kicked a ball.
Well, that's the thing.
He hasn't kicked a ball in anger.
And a lot of the fans of New York City FC, who were not very happy about the fact that he wasn't
there,
are now still not very happy. And, they're kind of looking elsewhere for their kind of star player, basically, because he hasn't been able to do anything. And, unfortunately for Steven Gerrard, he's injured. He's not playing either tonight, so we won't be able to keep an eye on him. But nevertheless, we will keep everybody updated.
the initial hours, Mike, never mind the initial days and weeks, the initial hours of a player arriving in America are so important for how he forges his public image.
Yeah, right. But he did all that last year, Frank Lampard.
Well, he did, but he still didn't put a football strip on, did he? And get out there and put his boots on and get on with it. Whereas Beckham, of course, being the arch showman that he is. You remember David Beckham, the minute he arrived in America, he asked the club to fill the stadium with 20,000 people and went there and started meeting and greeting and kissing and put his shirt on and everything.
And that was the mistake that Lampard made, because he did a load of pictures, he did a load of stuff, and they had posters everywhere.
And then pushed off back to England.
And then he didn't actually turn up for the start of the season.
Exactly,
which was a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
And as you say, he still hasn't actually played. So Robbie Keane's not playing either, unfortunately, due to an injury. But anyway, we shall keep you updated on that, and we'll talk to John Krieger about it later on. We're going to talk about cricket in a minute. Let's talk about John Stones now, though, because Everton have turned down yet another offer from Chelsea.
Yeah, but it wasn't very much of an improvement, was it?
But you'd have to think they're going to put in another one.
I would think so. I think what's the issue here is no longer the commercial negotiation between Everton and Chelsea. Right. It's the fact that John Stones' head has been turned. And so John Stones isn't really, in my view, in a fit state to play for Everton anymore.
What, you think he needs to go somewhere else? Manchester United is supposedly interested.
Well, I said this weeks ago, to be honest. Don't want to blow my own trumpet, but I spoke to somebody up at Goodison, and I knew that somebody had made an inquiry from Manchester United the minute that Chelsea's had been turned down. Right. And I always thought that he probably will end up there, because he's a northern boy anyway, right? Okay, I'm not being insulting, saying people can't move around the country and live where they are, but he is a northern boy. And the lure of Manchester United to anybody brought up in the north is much stronger than the lure of Chelsea.
Sure, and he might not particularly want to come to London at this point.
Exactly, yeah. It might be another time. And also, I do think that when he goes to Chelsea, it's all very well saying he'll be groomed as the successor to John Terry. But I don't think he's going to be a regular place in the team this season if John Terry is standing there like Stonewall Jackson saying, you try and move me, you'll need a cannon.
And standing next to Cahill as well.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Would you take a risk on John Stones at his age, who's never played in the intensity level of football that Chelsea play in, or would you stick with Cahill and Terry? And therefore, he could have a frustrating season, whereas Manchester United, badly needed in that defence, and will feel more comfortable.
He would play every week if he went to Manchester
United? Certainly would at Manchester United if he went to Manchester United. And also, I don't know quite what I'm trying to say here, but he'll settle into a situation at Manchester United which, for me, for me, is more appealing to a young player than the austerity of Chelsea.
Possibly
so.
Although John Cross was on Kickoff a little bit earlier on, and he was talking about how he might want to go and learn stuff from Cahill and John Terry as well, because John Terry at the moment is considered to be perhaps the best sort of central defender
but that's a gamble, isn't it? That's a gamble. I'll spend a season learning my trade. Yeah. And also, I always think that any footballer who says, I'll go there and learn my trade, lacks confidence in himself. Right. I wouldn't tell anybody that. I mean, for instance, I wouldn't say to anybody here, I think I'll spend a year alongside Mike Graham, doing a show because I want to learn my trade from him.
Well,
you know
there's
what
nothing
I mean?
you could learn from me, I don't
think. No, there's nothing I can learn from you. Absolutely nothing.
And there's nothing I can learn from you. I don't think there's anything either of us can learn from each other.
There's plenty you can learn from me.
Do you think?
Humility.
Yeah.
I think the ability to literally fuse with the audience. To have the affection of the audience flown in your direction rather than away from you. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Things like this.
And how would you say I do that then?
I think
to do it?
I think the audience detect in you a little cynicism, which they don't detect in me.
Really?
I am known as the...
You are quite gullible, that's true.
No, I'm not gullible.
You believe everything you read.
No, I'm not gullible, but just as my club Everton are known as the club of the people, I think I'm known... Oh, yes, absolutely.
I thought they were known as the Toffees.
No, the People's Club.
The People's Club?
They are known as Toffees, but the People's Club. I think I'm known as the listener's pal.
Well, you call yourself the man of the people, don't you?
I think I am the listener's pal.
But there's a lot of things that when you come out with them, they say we're quite surprised that you're such a snob that you actually don't believe you're a man of the people.
When you carry the title Seeker of Truth and Justice, as I do, you have an obligation to the millions of the audience out there. Now, getting back to John Stones, what I'm saying is, when your head has been turned by the fact that two of the biggest clubs in this country are having a tug of war about securing your services... And when I'm saying two of the biggest clubs in the country, I'm talking about Chelsea and Manchester United, and you're already playing for one of the most established clubs in the country, amongst the biggest in the country, then I think that you say to yourself, wow, at this age, what an opportunity that is. And that's ignoring, of course, the obvious fact that Chelsea and Manchester United could both treble his salary.
Yeah, they could.
Which is quite a big thing.
So do you think in the end there will be a third offer that will come in from one of those clubs, which will be enough to actually turn not only his head, but also Everton's bank balance as well, and they'll have to sell him?
Yeah, I mean, look, you can be as rigidly pro-Evertonian as you want and doggedly determined that he's going to stay, but I feel almost certain he will have been sold to another club by the start of the season.
And do you think Everton have got a figure in mind that if they actually get that, then he's going?
I'm sure that there is a figure that will trigger the transfer, and it's probably about 35 million, I think.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure the latest offer was it 32?
Yeah, well, 32 was supposed to be the ideal price, wasn't it? I don't think it was quite as much as that. But, I mean, if it gets up to 35, surely they'll have to get rid of him.
But once again, I would say, and I don't wish to labour the point, but I would say that if Raheem Sterling is worth 50 million quid to Manchester City, John Stones is worth at least that to Chelsea if they want to get themselves a long-term replacement for either Cahill or Terry. I think if he goes anyway, I think there's a possibility he'll replace Cahill at the end of this season.
What about the idea of him going and then being loaned back? Do you think that would ever
happen? No. If you do that, that's ridiculous. If John Stones entered into a deal like that, ludicrous.
That would be crazy, wouldn't it?
Ludicrous, because he's an England centre-half. He's going to be first choice for England in the next time England put a squad of players together, so that's ludicrous.
Well, let me give you a couple of verdicts from the audience which are coming in on Twitter. Right. You can tweet us at the two mics. Matt says this: Porky is the best in the world at advertising himself. What a plank.
Okay, thank you.
VHP says Porky's not quite the hero, is he? Claiming credit for a piece he got help for.
What?
#cheat. I think he's talking about the Peter O'Sullivan.
What do you mean?
I can't believe it, says the professor. Parry used the words weekly rag, and the other month he slagged off MG for using those exact same words.
No, I said my father described it as that. I didn't describe it as that. I was very proud to work at the Chester Chronicle. In fact, actually, I am the most famous ex-reporter ever to have worked for that paper.
Well, of course you must.
I put them on the map.
Has nobody else ever come from Chester in the journalistic world?
Why do you think they got a picture of me in the foyer to the King's School Chester? Because, I was the boy who
I thought that
left
had been
Chester.
Taken down.
No.
Are you sure?
Oh, absolutely certain. I was a boy from Chester who went out into the big wide world and made it. You see what I mean?
Yeah, OK.
Yeah.
Tom says this: if Porky gets 3 of his predictions correct in a row, I will jump off Bournemouth Pier. So you might want to remember that one, just in case you do.
Well.
And Mark says Porky's wrong again. Not the first time an Australian captain made a shocking decision. Ponting did in 2005 when putting England in at Edgbaston.
Yes, funnily enough, that was at the same ground, wasn't it? Yes, you're absolutely right about that. But as Ricky Ponting is now more concerned about the colour of his hair and having it re-knitted, that's something we don't talk about anymore.
No, you don't mention that because he's quite sensitive about it.
He is very sensitive about it, yeah.
Now, Porky Vision's
by the way,
up,
Celtic didn't do too well, did they, tonight?
No, they didn't.
They only won 1-0 against FK Karabagi.
From Azerbaijan, right?
Azerbaijan, that's right.
So well, they are the Azerbaijan champions.
Yeah, I know. So they've got to go to Azerbaijan now with only a 1-goal lead.
Yeah.
I've always felt that Celtic's new manager, and I don't know his name, but he's a Scandinavian guy. What's his name?
Ronnie Delia.
Ronnie Delia?
Yeah.
That's his name. I knew his name, but I just couldn't pronounce it. I think he's a bit self-satisfied. You know, last season, when I heard him say, with 12 games to go, every game's cup final now, what he meant was, and they were heading for the treble, and he was trying to make out that there was enormous pressure on them. But a bit like...
Well, there is pressure on Celtic, but it's a strange kind of pressure because they're expected to win every game.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
So if they don't win every game, then people start to ask questions about the manager, they start to ask questions about the way that
they're
playing.
But they're not playing Bayern Munich every week,
Well,
are
no,
they?
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's
but they are also...
And that's no disrespect to the Scottish clubs. It's just about the size of the country and what a population of 5 million people can actually bring in terms of a number of great football teams.
Don't forget, Neil Lennon got them into the Champions League proper. He managed to get them into the knockout stage as well.
Beat Barcelona, didn't they?
Yeah, they had a tremendous run. And, you know, unfortunately, they're not as good as they were then. And so they were really playing sort of above themselves. And they should still get into the main Champions League draw, though. That's what everybody expects them to do.
Well, exactly. But what a weird old league Scotland is now, because some of the biggest clubs are languishing in the Championship and seem to be unable to get out of it.
Well, that's right, yeah.
Bizarre.
Including Hibs and Rangers.
Exactly, yeah.
Bizarre, indeed. We've got lots more coming up. Next, we're going to be talking to an Australian, Tony Shebeki from SEN.
Great.
Down under. We'll find out
Tony.
what the reaction
Big pal.
is. Is he a big pal?
Big pal, yeah.
Oh, OK, we'll make sure we mention that then.
Yeah.
We'll find out what the Australian reaction has been. So a pretty disastrous day for them at Edgbaston in the third test in the Ashes. This is TalkSport.
I don't like cricket. Oh no. I love it. I don't like cricket. No.
This is TalkSport. We are the two mics, and coming up very shortly, we're going to talk to Tony Shebeki from SEN to find out what the Australians are saying, particularly what the papers down there are saying about Australia's performance. It's been a very odd sort of series so far, hasn't it? Because it's been the first test actually now looks like it was about the closest one that has actually happened. You know, England won it, but you know, then Australia slaughtered England the second one.
Absolutely.
This one looks like it's going.
I wonder why the Australian batsman was so inept today. That's what we need to find out.
Well, that's what we need to find out
exactly
from Tony Shebeki when we get hold of him.
Exactly.
We'll ask
Where
him
is he?
He's about to come on the phone any second now, but you don't need to ask that question because you can see on the screen whether he's coming on or not. But anyway, the point is that they've always been described as completely kind of you know, vulnerable, haven't they? The opening batsman for Australia. But it's all about Jimmy Anderson on the back pages this morning, isn't it?
Yeah. Are they vulnerable? I mean, how can they be vulnerable when they've got the best batsmen in the world? They've got guys who knock up double centuries on a regular basis. How can they be vulnerable?
Well, because apparently that's what the people who know about cricket would tell you. They would say that they sometimes suffer with the wicket. They sometimes suffer with the way the ball's coming.
So this is your admission. You know nothing about cricket.
I don't know very much about cricket. Hit for six is what it says on the back of the Star.
Yeah.
Jimmy hits Aussies for six. It's got I can do better. Jimmy Anderson says, and he just had to improve on what he did at Lords. Anderson delights in revival. Is what it says. 6 for 47, which is not bad.
Yes. No, absolutely.
Did you sit and watch it all afternoon? Then?
No, I don't. No, I don't have time. I've got other things to do.
You don't have time, so what did you get up to then?
What do you mean?
While the cricket was on. I mean, you must have kept a weather eye on it.
Well, the cricket was on. I was just busy. I was busy. Really? You know, I get into my office and I just get busy, man, and get on with things, you know what I mean? And sort things out. Listen, while we're waiting to talk to Tony, I back the FA in backing Michel Platini. I think he'd be a great boss of FIFA, yeah.
Why do you do that?
Why do I do what?
Yeah, why do you back Platini?
I met Platini when I was the TalkSport correspondent for the 2008 European Championships.
Right.
In Austria and Switzerland when England didn't qualify.
That was the one England didn't qualify for.
Yeah, so we just went there
so you didn't have an awful lot to do then, really, did you?
Oh, yeah, I did. I had loads. Yeah, we'd travel around to all the games and met all the fans and all that kind of stuff, and, met the German fans, Dutch fans, all that kind of stuff. You know, it was great, honestly. And there were a lot of England fans who went there just to watch the games, believe it or not, even though England weren't there. But I remember one night in a hotel in Zurich.
It's very odd to be at a tournament like that when England weren't actually even attending it.
It sort of was.
Yeah.
And by the way, I tell you the thing that you most notice, it's the only tournament I've ever been to when England weren't there.
Yeah.
And the absence of England fans reduces the level of interest in the tournament locally by about 1/3 in total. For instance, the opening game, which was in some where was it? In some Swiss town, but it wasn't Zurich, if you see what I mean.
Not Basel.
It could have been Basel or Bern or somewhere like that. They didn't even have a full crowd.
Right.
And I was with a couple of engineers and a producer, and we said, look, can we find a decent hotel, maybe 5 miles away where we can locate ourselves and base? And we said, yeah, but, it'd be packed out and all that. There was nobody there.
Really?
There was literally nobody there. And we said, the game is today, isn't it? Oh, yeah. And we got there. And, you normally see fans streaming up the road towards the stadium.
Yeah, and they normally have all sorts of zones for them to go to because they can't get into the stadium.
No. People were just sitting on the pavements and doing nothing. And the stadium wasn't full. It was amazing. And when I talked to people, organisers, they said, well, this is the England effect. I said, what do you mean? They said, well, England don't come. About 1/3 of the total fans you expected at the tournament simply don't materialise.
How bizarre.
Oh, yeah, and they're just not here, and they just don't do it.
So how did you meet Mr. Platini then?
Well, we were in a hotel one night in Zurich, and literally came out of the restaurant and, going off to do something else. He was literally in the lobby talking to somebody.
Right.
And I just held back for a bit. I don't know who he was talking to. And then, he stopped talking to this bloke, and he turned away to walk to the door, and I just walked over and said hello. And I had a Marantz in my hand. Marantz is a machine where you can pre-record an interview.
Yeah.
And a microphone.
A recording machine.
A recording machine, yeah. Well, no, what I'm saying is it's about the size of an old-fashioned tape recorder,
right.
You know what I mean, portable tape recorder. Whereas these days you can do it on a machine the size of a box of matches.
Yeah,
easy.
Or an iPhone, even.
On iPhone, do it on an iPhone, absolutely,
right.
yeah, absolutely. And anyway, I was telling Mr. Platini, he said, yeah, he was very polite and all that, and I explained who I was, and he said, look, I Cardiff. He said, come and sit down and we'll have a chat, he said. And we sat in the lobby on 2 seats, talked for about 15 minutes, but he wouldn't let me record any of it. He said, it's not on the record. He said, I can't do that. He said, if I do things on the record, he said, it completely alters the balance of power in football, because people take everything I say in a different interpretation.
So what did he tell you that was of any use then?
Well, my main question to him was, why are you so anti-English?
Yeah.
And he spent 15 minutes telling me he wasn't anti-English.
And
but
was that convincing to you?
He's a very intelligent bloke.
Yeah.
And I mean, the points he put up were all, extremely credible and believable. But I still felt he was anti-English. Do
you not think, though, sometimes when people accuse guys like him of being anti-English, it's just that they don't think that football revolves around England. They actually think it revolves around somewhere else.
The problem was, he said, I'm not anti-English, but I'm in charge of football in Europe, and I've got to watch that the balance of resources in Europe don't all pile over to England because you've got because you raise the most revenues, you've got the most money with Sky, you attract a lot of the best players. And I said, yeah, but we don't attract all the best players in the world. Right. A lot of them go to Italy and Spain. He said, yeah, I agree. He said, but
Germany.
He said, Germany. He said, but as a business model, you are by a mile the most successful. Therefore, you're generating huge revenues. Therefore, it's my job to try and retread the balance and all that.
And that may well be true. I'm not sure that he's actually anti-English, but we'll pick that up again.
No, I don't think he was anti-English. Spoke in magnificent English. Used words like, the trouble is that football in England now is enjoying an Indian summer. And I didn't understand what he was talking about. No.
But anyway, Right, well, we'll talk a bit more about him later.
Yes.
Let's talk to Tony Shibeki now from SCN, because he's going to tell us how Australia's reacted to that first day at Edgbaston. Tony, very good morning to you.
In shock, boys, is the answer to your question. That's how we've reacted.
Good.
A lot of us stayed up and watched the first session and saw Australia lose those first 3 wickets, but didn't think they would capitulate as badly as that, and just absolutely shocked.
Well, you didn't have to stay up all night, I suppose. That's one thing on the bright side.
Exactly.
True. That does help. But the fact is, when you wake up after not knowing what had happened, and you go to the television, turn on the news, and you see that, you go, oh, there's my day gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
A downer on the day.
Absolutely. Tony, I mean, you're massively experienced in watching cricket. Can you explain why cricket, more so than any other sport that we watch and follow, produces such inconsistent performances from its stars? Footballers normally go on a run and they, over 10 or 12 games, they score 8 or 9 goals and all that. Cricketers go into bat and score a double century 1 minute and then knock up 7 in their next innings.
Mike, that's a very easy answer. It's very similar to golf, and it's called conditions.
Yeah,
it's different grounds, different surfaces, different conditions. Golfers don't win more than 2 or 3 tournaments in a year if they win that many. And cricketers also find it really hard to score big runs consistently. You have a few like Steve Smith did last year, Joe Root also. But apart from that, conditions really can favour a batsman or a bowler at any one time, and this time It was the Englishmen that used they had the best conditions on day one.
Well, I reckon that the world's best cricketers must be those who can adapt to the conditions.
Well, you would think so, but was there a mistake in batting then for Australia, because they had the choice, didn't they?
We heard an interview with Michael Clarke here in Australia. I don't know whether you guys got it on your coverage over in England. He was asked about what he was going to do if he wins the toss, and he said, "This is the greenest wicket I've ever seen in all my time coming to England. The captain who wins the toss will bowl."
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, boys. Didn't he win the toss and then bat?
Yes.
But that's exactly what he did, and people are saying that, maybe that was what first went wrong, because obviously England were hoping to win the toss, and when they didn't, there was a bit of despair, because they thought, well, this is not going to go well.
This is reminiscent.
Yeah,
it is reminiscent of Ricky Ponting winning the toss and bowling after Glenn McGrath stood on a ball and twisted his ankle and couldn't bowl. Yeah. I mean, wouldn't you at that point of time, if you're Ricky Ponting, bat and give McGrath a day to get over it? It was an astounding decision by Clarke to bat first.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Jimmy Anderson was on such great form as well. Perhaps they couldn't have predicted that. They weren't expecting that.
No, exactly right. Look, to all credit, I mean, the English bowlers are fantastic. They bowl beautiful line and length, and they bowled to their strengths and the Australians' weakness, and as a result, they got the wickets. No Australian scoring more than 16 runs. Chris Rogers, our best scorer on the day, and he's just he loves it over there in England on those pitches. So, yeah, we've got a lot of work to do. Our bowlers are going to have to get some quick wickets early on day two if Australia are going to get back in this one. Otherwise, England definitely have the upper hand.
That's right. Now, Tony, again, with your huge experience of watching cricket, is Adam Voge, by any chance, the bravest cricketer fielder in the world? Because he was so close to having his head taken off, wasn't he, by England's captain, Alistair Cook?
Yeah, look, Adam, and I'm just going to correct you there, Mike, and I hate doing this to fellow commentators. Adam Voges.
Oh, Voges, I beg your pardon. Yeah, okay.
Voges.
Yeah,
Voges. Right. No, that's fine. You're right. You put yourself in those positions, and things are going to happen, and you're right. He's a very, very brave man, but there's been a few before him as well, haven't there?
Yeah, I know, but, I mean, honestly, I'm not sure that I would be able to do that.
I mean, he didn't really sort of jump in front of the ball, did he? I mean, it just came at him.
What I'm saying is he was so close to one of the world's great batsmen that if that ball had been 1 foot higher, he wouldn't have had time to take his head out of the way. His face would have ended up on the other side of the boundary.
Right, but that's all part of the tactics, isn't it?
Well, it is, and I reckon one bloke that comes to mind is David Boone, who used to field in that short leg position quite often. Yeah. I think the fact that he was 2'6" was probably his advantage, because the ball always went over his head.
Yeah, that's right. And David Boone, in fact, holds the record, doesn't he, for drinking the most number of cans of beer on the flight from Australia to England prior to a test match, doesn't he?
Not that he'll ever admit that anymore, because I don't think he wants to be known for that as his only thing that he did in cricket. But you're right, I think it was something like 36 cans of beer.
Yeah, that's right.
On the 14, 15-hour flight.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what a boy. Yeah.
Now, as far as what happens now, England. The thing about this series is that England are just as likely to do what Australia did in a way. I mean, as they started, suddenly a couple of wickets went, and everyone was going, "Oh, hang on, maybe this is going to be a repeat of what happened to Australia." But they're only 3 runs behind, and it looks reasonably safe for them at the moment. But it's a strange series in that sense, isn't it? Because as Mike was saying, the batsmen are just not really relying on each other.
Absolutely.
No, exactly right. And I think for Australia to get some sort of ascendancy back into this game, they need a couple of early wickets in the first session. If England don't lose a wicket and go on to make 80 or 100 runs in that first session, I think it's very much all up for England to take, and could possibly go 2-1 up in the series.
Yeah, absolutely right.
But that doesn't mean it's the end of it either, though, does it, of course?
No, far from it.
But it's a huge psychological advantage, I think.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, sure.
So what are the Australian papers making of it all today?
Yeah, look, pretty much in that. I think, unfortunately, because of the time difference, the final result didn't make most of our papers this morning. So we'll wait and see what they talk about. But most of the websites are sort of going with that. Australia lacked fight. Australia, terrible first innings decision by Michael Clarke to bat first. Chris Rogers, effectively, also, there's a lot of comments about his press conference saying a combination of things. They bowled well and we just didn't bat well. So put those two together, you're never going to get a big score. So, yeah, unfortunately, the newspapers and the tabloids haven't had a real chance to jump on this one just yet.
Right, so we'll have a go at that tomorrow then.
Yeah.
Thanks very much indeed. Tony Specky there from,
Thanks, Tony.
from SEN.
Always good to talk to you, pal.
The Australians are actually in shock about all of this thing because they weren't expecting this at all, because that was one of the things that that was being said yesterday, that perhaps Australia were a little bit too kind of complacent because they'd won so well in the second test, actually at Lord's. They wouldn't have any problems after that, and it's gone completely wrong for them. It's
gone completely wrong. I mean, if you were playing cricket, would you stand where the boy Voges was standing?
I don't think I'd volunteer to do that.
No, I wouldn't either. I think they're mad, because that ball leaves that bat at about 100 miles an hour. It's like a missile.
Yeah, but the reason they stand that close is to kind of intimidate the batsman, isn't it?
It would be like being a cavalier in the Civil War and having a cannon being fired at you. Seriously, that's about the same power as a medieval cannon being fired at you from 10 feet.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean,
get out of the way quick.
He has got protective gear on, hasn't he? He's got a helmet on. So
no, he didn't. No, he didn't have a helmet on, did he? He only had a hat on. Did he have a helmet on? Yeah, but nevertheless, if you've got a helmet, that's not. I don't think that's going to be much defence against. No, he didn't. He had a cap on, didn't he?
I'm sure he had.
I don't think he had a helmet on. Well, maybe he did. I don't know.
I think he did.
But that's not going to give you much protection. I think they're very brave men. I wouldn't do it.
No, I don't suppose you would. But then you're not a very brave man.
I'm a very brave man. I'm just not a cricketer. That's all.
All right.
I'm not sure if my cat-like reflexes would work quickly enough to get me out the way. That's all.
Can your cat-like reflexes look at the clock once in a while and see how late it is? Because, we have to take some kind of a breather here. This is Talk Sport with the two mics.
Talk Sport on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
Freedom for sport.
Can we kick it? Yes, we can. Talk Sport.
Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies.
Sport, we are the two mics. There'll be a podcast coming out a little bit later on this morning, of course. That's one of your favourite bands, so you won't have any trouble identifying them, will you?
No, Fleetwood Mac and Stevie Nicks at her absolute beautiful best, eh?
Yeah.
Wow, what a performance that was. I've seen her I saw her on stage once when she had that black chiffon sort of dress on that she sort of whirled around her all the time, you know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I tell you why we're playing that.
Yeah.
I came across this report today. Parents who grew up in the 1980s, 1990s, are all the time telling their kids, as their kids become teenagers, how bad they were in their youth. I was a goth, I was a headbanger, I was a new romantic, and I was a punk and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
To make their past sound a little bit more kind of interesting.
No, to give themselves street cred with their children, their teenage children.
Isn't
that ridiculous?
Isn't it now the case? And I mean, not necessarily for me.
I bet you did that.
No, I never made up any stories.
I bet you did.
No, I didn't.
Your daughter Emma, your beautiful daughter Emma, I bet she was impressed with some of the stories you gave her about your youth.
Not at all, no. Not in the sense that
she wasn't impressed with you. Well, that doesn't surprise me.
Not in the sense that I made stories up, I mean. I was never really a punk rocker or a goth or anything like that.
What were you then?
Well, I was just a teenager. I never really did anything in particular.
What, really? You never had an identity?
Well, no, I had my own identity. I was never into moving with a particular crowd.
Well, at school, weren't there goths and punk rockers and all that kind of stuff?
Not really, no, because that didn't really happen until after I left school. I mean, my first kind of encounter with buying music and buying albums and stuff, when everyone else was listening to Alvin Stardust, I was listening to Led Zeppelin. So,
Oh, well, you're a bit more sophisticated,
I think I was, and most of the other kids that I knew...
I do love you.
Most of the other kids were into whatever the top 40 was, right?
That's Alvin Stardust, by the way.
I know it is, yeah. And they were all exchanging singles and, listening to all the stuff that was in the top 20 and in the top 10.
All we ever exchanged were Beatles albums.
Yeah, well, that was a long time before that, then, in that case, wasn't it? I mean, I'm talking about sort of mid-70s.
I'm talking about Abbey Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, and all that kind of stuff.
No, but I mean, what I'm saying is that, I never really was part of a particular sort of fashion organised. I was never a new romantic, I was never a punk, I was never really anything.
Really?
No.
Well, it doesn't surprise me.
Sort of ploughed my own furrow.
I must admit that I never got into, for instance, my mates all got into the skinhead thing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was just amazing. 1 minute they had, sort of long, blonde, flowing locks. Yeah. And then, I remember one of my mates, actually, I remember his name was Kev, and we went out one day and you do an unusual thing, went into town trying to, eye up women and all this kind of stuff.
Every one of your stories involves that kind of activity, doesn't it?
Well, the thing is, Chester, you see...
I'm amazed that nobody really sort of had some kind of, sort of book on you or something.
What do you mean?
Because, I mean, wherever you went, you were eyeing up women, either in the clubs or in the streets.
It's true. At that age, everybody did.
Well, did they?
Yeah.
Sure it wasn't just you and your mates?
Well, no. Most normal people, most normal boys of my age in the mid-teenage years wanted to eye up women all the time. That was the raison d'etre of life.
Right.
And Chester is a particularly good town for eyeing up women.
When you say eyeing them up, you mean just sort of standing somewhere and watching people going past?
Yes, that's right. And giving them the eye.
Giving them the eye?
And seeing if you got the eye back. You know what I mean?
Commenting or whistling or anything like that?
No. Just looking sort of...
Trying to catch their eye?
Yeah, looking a bit sort of... not mysterious, looking a bit sort of interesting. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
Smile on your face and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Looking a bit sort of dodgy, really.
Or looking good-looking, if you see what I mean. I was a good-looking kid, you see. But Chester is a particularly good city for it. I'll tell you what.
Right.
In Chester, we have a thing called the Rows. And the rows mean that you have the main street.
Oh, the rows as in rows of chairs or something?
No. And then you have a raised level of shops on a second level, and they're called the rows.
Right.
And they've always been built like that.
ROWS.
ROWS.
Okay.
But then the second level has... well, for want of a better word, balconies overlooking the main street.
Oh, okay.
So all you do
stand
is
up there.
you stand up there and pose up there, and and look.
Didn't anybody sort of move you on?
No.
Like the people around the shops.
No. There's plenty of room because they moved out from the shops. You know what I mean?
Technically, you were actually loitering, really, weren't you? With intent.
No, everybody did it, and then you'd look down on the street, see all the girls who'd gone shopping and all the carrying, and give them the eye and all that kind of stuff.
And would any of them actually look up and catch your gaze?
Well, if they suddenly walked another sort of 20 or 30 yards and then suddenly looked back and then came up a flight of stairs and came back to see you, then, you'd
And
made
did that
contact. Happened all the time.
Really?
Happened all the time.
How bizarre.
Then you were off to a coffee bar somewhere, for a cup of coffee or something like that, and then you started making plans. And that's the way it used to work. And then, of course, when we got to about 15, 16... then we could get into pubs and drink illegally, of course. And that was a big thrill to some.
To the point where you would give them the wrong phone number, presumably.
No, that came later.
Oh, that was later.
But that would really impress the young ladies because some of them have never been in a pub before, and so it's very grown up to say, no, come, we'll go to the Boot Inn.
And did nobody ever say to you in the pubs, I don't think you're old enough, I need to see some ID?
That never happened to me.
Never?
I don't know why. Never happened to me. Never. I was never told. You've got to remember in those days, I mean, there wasn't as much of a booming economy around as there is these days.
Right.
So in a pub, if a guy came in and he had a chick with him, and, young lady.
Young lady, yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't want it to be branded sexist by saying the word chick.
Sorry, yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, from those days.
Yes.
And if you ordered a pint of lager and lime for yourself and a... what did they used to drink?
Pernod and blackcurrant or something like that.
Well, funny you should say that. It wasn't Pernod, it was a rum and black.
Okay.
That's right, rum and black. Or a Bacardi and Coke,
okay.
Which I used to call a Cuba Libre to impress them.
Oh, right,
okay, Cuba Libre.
So they thought you could speak Spanish.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And that would cost in those days maybe £1.20 or something like that. No pub would turn that down because that was business, you know what I mean?
But, I mean, it's not a massive city, Chester, is it? I mean,
it's not,
you must have become quite well known as one of these guys that went into pubs and different women. And,
No. Chester was famous for having 365 pubs within the licensing district, one for every day of the year. It had lots of pubs because it was a tourist town.
So you always went to different pubs then?
Yeah, I went to different pubs all the time.
Because I would have thought when you were underage, once you know there's a place that will serve you, just keep going to that one.
Well, funny you should say that. There was a place down Lower Bridge Street called the King's Head, and that's where everybody of my age went. I mean, that became the pub.
Right.
So they weren't going to stop serving you because their whole business plan was based on
underage
16-year-olds, coming out of school on a Friday, going home, getting changed, coming back into town, spending all their money in the King's Head in Lower Bridge Street. Yeah, absolutely.
And that just doesn't happen anymore, does it? Because
no.
The licensing laws have been much tightened up, haven't they?
There was a pub down the bottom of Lower Bridge Street, and that's where you got your drugs if you were a druggie, which I wasn't. Yeah, and I'm trying to remember what it was called now. Oh, it was something to do with a bear. The staff? Bear and staff or something? Yeah, a bear.
Why would it be a bear and staff?
Well, because...
Would it be like a stick?
No, a bear was tied to a staff and danced.
Really?
Dancing bear. Simon Smith and his amazing dancing bear. I'm trying to remember what it was called now. The Bear and Billet. It was called the Bear and Billet. That's right, yeah.
Right.
And that's where people went to get their tablets and all this kind of stuff. I don't know what they were doing because I never got into that. It was a mugs game.
So this is a description of your kind of youth, and you
yes.
So you weren't part of any particular kind of cult.
Well, I used to dress smartly, but anyway, getting back to the skinhead thing. Yeah. So my mate Kev, he had long blonde flowing hair. Yeah. But he didn't dress as smartly as me. He didn't have as much money as me. He didn't work as hard as I did in life. You see what I mean?
Because you had about 3 jobs by this time.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So anyway, what happened was we went out one day, and all of a sudden he saw people walking around town in Crombie coats.
Yeah.
Those blue overcoats,
stay fresh trousers.
Absolutely, and bother boots.
Yeah.
But what most impressed him was their hairstyles. They were skinheads.
Right.
And I said, no. I said, it looks ridiculous. He said, yeah, come on, let's go and get our haircut like that. I said, no. I said, I couldn't dream of looking like that. I said, they look like thugs. And they used to actually paint scars on their head to make it look like they'd been in a fight and all this kind of stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I can't really see you as a skinhead.
No, I can't see myself as a skinhead. I really can't. And so anyway, he said, no, I'm going to do it. So we hadn't had any luck picking up any women that afternoon.
Right.
So he went into this...
nothing else to do.
Yeah, absolutely. He went into this barber's, don't know where he got his money from. I think I had to lend it to him. Got his hair cut like that. He went home and his mother literally had a nervous breakdown and was, screaming and wailing in tears, couldn't believe it.
I mean, skinhead's reputation was that they used to get into fights all the time, even if they didn't actually do it.
Well, it meant that when you were a skinhead then, it was like having an advert in your head saying, anybody want a punch-up?
Right.
Particularly somebody bigger than me.
And did he then go and join a gang of some kind?
No, not really.
And did he get a Crombie?
No, he didn't actually, funny enough. No, he didn't.
Dr. Martens?
No.
So he didn't actually dress like a
No,
skinhead?
he didn't. He didn't. He just went and got the skinhead cut. And I think what it was is that because we all had school uniforms in those days, when you went back to school on Monday, right?
And didn't the school kick off about it as well?
Probably in those days, but it made him look extra hard in class in his school uniform, and the fact that on the way to school and the way back, again, you always had an eye for the girls. You see what I mean?
And so did you
the girls' school was next door.
Walking around with him, or did you kind of sort of abandon him at that point?
I made myself a bit distant.
Yeah.
I was a bit worried that if we were walking down the street in Chester, another gang of skinheads would come the other way, that they might decide to beat his head in because he was a rival skinhead,
and then you wouldn't be able to help out then.
Well, no, I might also get attacked. So I didn't want to get attacked.
No,
So
that was the end of that friendship then.
Well, for a while it was till his hair grew out, and then it grew out, and then he never bothered getting it cut again like that. But anyway,
doesn't sound like his heart was in it really.
No, I don't.
I mean, he didn't have enough money to buy all the clothes, so all he did was he got his hair cut.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah,
just a bit mad.
I think you're absolutely right. So what I'm saying is, he got into that and all that kind of stuff, but I never got into it because, you see, the thing is, Mark, I'm not a pack animal.
No.
I don't need...
Well, neither am I.
I need to go in a pack, you see what I mean? But apparently a lot of them do. Listen, I tell you what, I read something else today, you won't believe this, about... I told you that I delivered all these weekly papers and they used to weigh down on your shoulder.
Yeah, and you said you think that may be why your growth was stunted, that was what you said.
In India... they've passed a new law banning school children from carrying bags heavier than 10% of their body weight because competitive parents are making them do so much homework now and buying them so many books.
Yeah.
These kids are becoming deformed from the weight of their satchels.
That's ridiculous.
I'm not joking. It's in Maharashtra. In Maharashtra...
Are you sure that's the right pronunciation?
Yeah, the rule in Maharashtra has been put in place to ensure less strain on the backs of children who are often under pressure to perform well in a highly competitive and growing education system. The child's 10% of the child's body weight is now standard for a satchel, and it's deforming children.
How strange.
I mean, that's terrible.
Maharashtra, is it, do you think?
Maharashtra. That's what I said, wasn't it?
Where is that in India, then?
Maharashtra.
Maharashtra?
Yeah, it's in... Well, I don't know. India's a very big place, so I wouldn't like to actually specify.
It is a very
big place. But anyway, people will know where it is.
Well, how much of your body weight do you think you were carrying?
Well, when I was carrying these weekly papers around, I mean, almost half, I would say.
Really?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. They were so heavy, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's to break your back.
I know, terrible.
I'm telling you, yeah.
Terrible. Well,
and the other thing was, by the way, that was on a bike, right?
Yeah.
So
we haven't got time for another thing, though.
Why didn't the tyres burst on Boris Becker's bike when he had his wife sitting on the saddle?
Do you mean Boris Johnson?
Boris Johnson.
I don't know if Boris Becker was on
Boris Becker,
or maybe Boris Becker was on a bike with somebody else.
No, Boris Johnson.
Why
Boris
did the
Johnson.
tyres burst?
Yeah, because his wife sat on the saddle while Boris Johnson, who's not a slight-framed man, he's a big, heavy man, was on the pedals. And you say to yourself, he's got two wheels with two tiny tyres. Why didn't the tyres burst?
Well, the tyres wouldn't burst just because there was a heavier load on the bike.
What, twice the weight of Boris Johnson on the same bike?
No.
I'm amazed it didn't burst.
That's like saying a lorry's tyres would burst if you filled it full of goods.
No, it's not, because it's built to be full of goods.
No.
But a bike is not built to have two human beings on it. It's built to have one.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Let's read out some tweets, Mr. Parry, because there's one here from Jason, who sent me a picture of Martin Lewis, the money-saving expert guy.
Yes.
And he says he is the most famous former schoolboy at the King's School, Chester. Did he go to the King's School, Chester?
Yeah, he did. He went there, yeah, he did.
He says he's more famous than you.
Well, I don't dispute that. I think he's a great guy, and I've got tremendous respect for him, because he sold his money, whatever it was, website.
Yeah, money-saving expert, was it?
Yeah, I think it's... well, he had the word save money in it, money savings. Very clever to have got that as his title. Right. And I think he sold it for £87 million.
Yeah.
So I've got huge respect for that guy. Well done.
Apparently he's the most Googled man last year.
Was he?
Which I find quite surprising.
Yeah, I do as well. Talking about these, right, somebody has sent me a note here saying, did you know this, by the way? In New York today, it's John Lennon Day.
Yes, funnily enough, I saw somebody tweeting that as well. I think that must be something new, because I didn't know they'd ever had a John Lennon Day.
No, I don't either, and I wonder, what sparked it, if you see what I mean. I mean, John's been dead a long time. It was 1990 when he was shot dead, wasn't he, in front of the Dakota building.
Well, I'll have to look it up and see when it was actually instituted.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's a guy called Roy Dickinson who tweets us a lot, and he asks for a particular favour. He says... Poldark is currently on Masterpiece Theatre on PBS over in America, right? It's a little behind, so he doesn't want any spoilers from me.
Oh, OK. Are you going to talk about Poldark? It's not on anymore, is it?
No, I wasn't going to talk about Poldark. In fact, I mentioned Poldark the other night, didn't I? I said it was there was a new series being made in the same sort of genre as Poldark. I can't remember what it was now.
Well, I can't remember either. No, but it's not on at the moment, so you've already given the ending of it away, I think.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody knows he gets arrested at the end of the...
Well, don't say it now, because he may not have heard it the first time he said it.
He will know. Of course he will know.
He may not know. Says here that U2's Bono claimed John Lennon and the rest of the Beatles as Irish at a ceremony on Ellis Island to unveil a giant tapestry marking the 40th anniversary of John Lennon getting his green card.
Oh, OK.
Which is why it's suddenly John Lennon Day.
Hang on, so that would have been, 1985?
40th anniversary, yeah.
1975?
75, yeah.
1975, yeah, well, he died in 1980, so that's about right, yeah, OK.
It says he evoked the famous image of Lennon holding up his two fingers in a peace sign on Ellis Island with the Statue of Liberty behind him.
Yes, yeah, I remember that, yeah. And did you say he's claimed Lennon was Irish?
Yeah, he's basically saying that both Lennon and indeed the Beatles were, in fact, Irish.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't know what he bases that on. I mean, there's plenty of Irish influence in Liverpool in those days, but not to my knowledge in the Lennon or McCartney
Well,
families.
This is what he said. He says, let's claim him. In fact, let's claim all the Beatles, not as immigrants, but as Irish. He said to cheers from the crowd.
Yeah, well, I mean, he says things like that, Bono, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
And usually gets away with it. But anyway, that's amazing. Where is the tapestry?
Well, it's on. It looks as if it's on Ellis Island.
Oh, I see. Right, OK, because, of course, that was where all the immigrants in the late 19th century, early 20th century went through Ellis Island to become resident American. By the way, did you know that only by a majority of 2% English was voted as the language of America in the late 1890s?
Is that right?
And nearly got pushed out for Italian.
Really?
Yeah. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I honestly, if it had gone the other way, Italian could be the official language of America.
How extraordinary.
Isn't that amazing?
And where did that vote take place then? In the Congress?
Yes, that's right. Yes, right. Absolutely. In the Congress,
you could imagine
those
like
days.
New York City having a lot of Irish influence.
Well, that's right.
Italian influence, but not necessarily the rest of the country.
No, well, I mean, they all sent delegates there, don't they? And let's face it. You think of these cities in America dominated by the Irish. All the way up from Boston, Philadelphia. Over on the West Coast, I think there's a bit of Irish influence, all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean?
There is. Yeah. Well, there's an Irish bar in every town you go to.
Yeah, of course there is. Well, there's an Irish bar in every town you go to everywhere in the world.
Now, Sue in Tonbridge says this. She's texted us into 81089.
OK.
So Porky was a good-looking young man. What happened to him?
Yeah.
Which I suppose is a bit of a harsh question.
Well, of course it's a harsh question. I'll bring in some pictures some days of when I was a thrusting young executive, at the Express and all that kind of stuff. That's why a lot of women were attracted to me, because of it's an aphrodisiac, isn't it? Good looks and power. You know what I mean?
It certainly is.
And that's what gets them all going. Now, listen, I'll tell you what I'll talk to you about.
Yeah,
I'll talk to you about what would you do with the Channel Tunnel situation? Would you send in the army?
Well, I think something militarily is going to have to be done.
I do as well.
I was watching a report on it yesterday, and,
yes.
and the problem seems to be that nobody's really taking control of it. And I was watching one of the government ministers from this country saying, well, we can't just send the army in because it's not Britain. It's part of another country.
No, you can request to France and say, look, to France, we want to send over, not armed soldiers, but a military force to
the French have always said, while this problem's been going on for years and years and years, that they want Britain to do more to somehow stop these people from landing at Calais and trying to get to Britain. But there must be a reason why they want to get to Britain. Why is Britain so much better than France?
Yeah, I tell you, I was rung up this morning by a radio station who wanted me to go and sit in their studio and appear there and debate the issue that actually it's not all that good a deal for immigrants to come to Britain, because when they get here, their lives aren't paved with gold and all that.
Right.
And I said, I can't do that because I don't believe in it. because Britain has got the most attractive benefits welfare system in the whole of the world.
Yeah, but they're not coming necessarily for the benefits.
Yes,
they
are.
They're just coming because they think it's going to be better for them in Britain than it is anywhere else.
Yeah, because of the benefit system.
I'm not sure if it's that.
Well, why else are they coming then? It's not for the weather, is it?
Well, it's not for the weather.
No.
It may not be for the job opportunities, but I mean, where they're coming from, you would think almost anywhere in Europe.
Well, why don't they just stop in France? The weather's better in the south of France.
Well, that's what I don't get.
Yeah, I do. What I get is that there's loads of people from their country already here saying, oh, by the way, the British are so nice that they won't let you starve, they won't let you go homeless, they won't actually throw you out once you're in here because they haven't got the resources to do it, so just keep coming. Yeah. That's what they're saying to people around the world.
And if necessary, you can probably disappear and live illegally anyway.
Yeah, what would you think would happen if we bricked up the Channel Tunnel?
Well, that would be, I think, a bit of a backward step, I suppose, because, I mean, there's an awful lot. I mean, the thing that really amazed me, I was watching a report on sort of local London news, and the whole of that whole area around Ashford has come to a standstill because the M20 is now just full of lorries not moving anywhere. So people can't get to work. People can't, deliver. There was somebody on saying that they ran a flower shop, couldn't deliver any flowers. They can't get anywhere.
The economy of Kent is slowly, literally disappearing.
Being strangled.
I saw a pub landlord being interviewed, and not just a pub landlord, he's a restaurant manager as well. Yeah. And his clientele's gone down by 90%. Yeah. Because they can't get there.
Because all the roads around the M20 are completely clogged up.
Completely clogged up and blocked. They can't get there. But also, if they did get there, he's not sure he could serve them any food anymore because his suppliers can't get there. Right. Because a lot of the food he gets comes from France, and it's stuck in a truck on the other side of the channel.
Exactly.
It's a nightmare and a crisis.
That's the thing. I mean, the thing is now there's so much freight goes through the tunnel that if you actually shut the tunnel and said no freight is now going to be able to go through there, they would put more pressure on the ferries, they would put more ferries on, and it would all just, collapse.
Yeah, but, we used to run it on just ferries alone. It seemed to work very efficiently in those days.
Yeah, but I think now there's more, traffic, there's more transit, more stuff is being moved around.
Mrs. Thatcher's original idea was to build a tunnel whereby you could jump in a car in Birmingham and drive without stopping to Paris. Right. She didn't want the railway at all. I mean, that was her idea, and she got furious about it and said, why can't we just build a drive-through tunnel?
But didn't they not do that because it would be too sort of dangerous and not safe enough?
Well, I don't know why they didn't do it in the end, but what I'm saying is, just imagine if that was the system, it would now be 10 times worse.
It would, yeah.
Because you wouldn't even have lorries stopping at Calais, they'd just keep driving and boom, straight through.
Well, that's the thing, and I mean, you can't imagine what the mindset of somebody must be who's so desperate that they're actually, risking their lives now.
By clinging on the underneath of a lorry.
Underneath a lorry, underneath a train, using any kind of means to get through the tunnel.
Honestly, I'm not joking.
Because, I mean, what do they think is going to happen if they actually do manage to get through the tunnel? Do you not think they're going to be found at the other side?
Yeah, of course they are. Haven't you, did you read the story about the farmer in, the first service station north of the... north of the M1, north of the M25. Yes, it's where the lorries coming through the tunnel, and then they come up the M20 or the M2, then they go around the M25, then they get onto the M1, then they stop at the first service station, which used to be called Scratchwood, didn't it?
Yeah.
And it's called something else now.
Pagnell or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, a farmer who has a farm that borders the motorway there has so far this year picked up 50 illegal immigrants because they jump out the lorries there because they're tired and knackered and they've been in the lorry for 36 hours and they run into his fields and start eating the corn and all this kind of stuff. Now, I mean, they don't care what happens once they're here. They know they can't be thrown out.
That's the thing.
And they also know two things. One, we haven't got the resources to repatriate them to wherever they came from. Imagine if they've come from Syria. How are we going to send them back to Syria? Yeah. Secondly, we don't have the will to do it. And thirdly, we have a sort of mentality in this country where we feel we should help people.
Well, if they're economic, and also if they're economic migrants, or if they're running from some horrible dictator, then they can get asylum, can't they? That's the point.
That's precisely the point. So two people in government now whose careers are on the line are... Theresa May, who's the Home Secretary, she's got to stop it. It's all very well saying, I've held another Cobra committee. That's a meeting of all the high-powered, security and all that. But they're still having riots in Calais and people are flowing through and getting killed. That's the worst thing. Yeah. People jumping on the railway tracks and getting killed and all this kind of stuff, right? So she's got to stop that. This is her big test as Home Secretary. And the other guy is IDS in Duncan Smith because he's in charge of welfare and the benefit system. He's got to make it clear to these people. He should have lorries driving round France and Italy and southern Spain saying, if you come to England, you will not get any money. He's got to say that. Otherwise, we will literally sink under the weight of the people, the hapless and desperate people who want to come here.
But most of these guys are not getting through. and they will continue to not get through. Surely what the French have to do is somehow move them away from where they are and make sure that they don't hang around by the Eurostar terminal or by the...
Yeah, but there's so many of them. It's like a plague, and I don't mean that rudely to them. They're human beings, but what I'm saying is there is a desperate wave after wave after wave of people who are doing it. Now, the other thing I think we should do is we can go the other way.
Apart from sending the message to these people that they shouldn't come here.
Yeah, exactly. We should do that. But if that doesn't work, then what you do is you then get proactive. And you say, OK, if you get through and you come here, we will pay you benefits, but you've got to sign up as a labourer and a builder, and you're going to build your own towns in the north of England, where there's plenty of space.
There's a lot of information going to them, and not all the information is right, but we've got to stop for a moment because we haven't checked the time.
Right.
Looking to the light for a minute, we'll carry on with this.
Yes.
He's Mike Parry, I'm Mike.
Is that like somebody like Tony Basil?
It wasn't somebody like Tony Basil, no, it was Claire was her first name.
Who? Claire?
Claire, yeah, she's Scottish.
I don't remember who
Claire Grogan.
Claire Grogan?
Yeah.
Never heard of Claire Grogan.
Never heard of Claire
Seriously.
Grogan?
Now, she was playing, Happy Birthday, right?
That's their version of Happy Birthday.
Yeah. Now, listen, did you know that the reason that you don't hear Happy Birthday very much in films is because the copyright laws surrounding it are so onerous that you have to pay up to $150,000 to use it in a film.
What, you mean the original just Happy Birthday to You song?
Happy Birthday to... You know, that one.
Well,
that
don't
one.
sing it, though. Because
I've only gave an indication of what it was about.
Oh, OK.
And apparently, it's the world's most popular song. It's performed thousands of times every day all around the world. And it could become even more popular because... it's under copyright, Happy Birthday to You.
Yeah.
It's a song that might be sung at parties by children at school, by waiters in restaurants, but rarely in films and television. Anybody who includes it in a film without a licence runs the risk of a fine running into thousands of pounds. But now, thanks to a court case in the US, all that could change. Lawyers for a filmmaker suing Warner Chappell, the music publisher, which makes $2 million a year from the copyright it guards so zealously, believe they've uncovered evidence which proves that there is no copyright to the lyrics of the song, and therefore...
does anybody know who actually wrote the song?
Therefore will be free and available to all in future.
Right. So this publishing company claims that they own the copyright.
Yes, exactly.
But if they haven't got any evidence of that, I suppose.
That's right. I mean, isn't that amazing? For years they've been telling people it's our copyright.
Well, apparently there was a case not that long ago in America where one of the big sort of food chains that used to sing Happy Birthday to people, bring balloons out and all that, had to be told to stop doing it because they were actually infringing copyright and because it was a performance.
Wasn't there a lawyer from the company that controlled the copyright or something in the restaurant at the time?
That's right. I think that's how it got found out. Yeah. And I mean, it was one of these, one of these kind of not fast food, but a sort of a very widespread restaurant that does this kind of thing all the time, and they had to stop doing it because otherwise we're going to get hit by a massive bill. Well,
this case has been brought by a woman called Jennifer Nelson. She's a director of small sort of documentaries and films, right? And she was told she'd have to pay $1,500 to use Happy Birthday to You in a documentary about the song itself.
Really?
She was making a documentary about the origins of it, and when she included it, she got a letter from these people who claim they own the words. So anyway, she is now suing for the return of that money and is also representing other plaintiffs who've been charged for using the song. The origins of Happy Birthday to You can be traced back to a school teacher called Patty Smith Hill and her sister Mildred Hill. They wrote the song, published in 1893, in a book called Song Stories for the Kindergarten, as a classroom greeting entitled Good Morning to All, for kids. Mildred wrote the melody and Patty added the simple words.
So they didn't write it as a Happy Birthday song. That got changed later on then?
Well, the lyrics were changed to Happy Birthday to You and published in a book in 1924. Now, in 1935, by which time it had become the standard birthday song, it was copyrighted by another Hill sister, Jessica, who was working with a publisher called Clayton F. Summey. The company was sold and renamed Birch Tree Limited, which was in turn sold to Warner Communications, who, with their other assets, are worth... was sold to Warner Communications with their asset for $25 million. And the latest development in the case, being heard in a California court, centres on when the song was published as Happy Birthday to You.
That's amazing, isn't it? I mean, it's one of those stories that you have no idea is going on in the background. Because,
absolutely.
I mean, if this publishing company is part of Warner, then maybe, they deserve everything they get. But if they make $2 million a year out of this one song,
exactly,
they're not going to give it up very easily.
No, they're not. But the thing is, because it all appeared in an obscure book years ago, and that book was part of the... the backlog of titles articles in a small publishing company, which ended up in the possession of Warner Communications, one of the biggest communication companies in the world. It's astonishing. But I tell you what this brought up, Mike.
I wonder if they charged Marilyn Monroe for singing it then to
the President.
To the President of the United States.
Don't
sing it. Because if you
I
sing
can,
it,
because it's only the first line.
It doesn't matter.
You're allowed to get away with the first four words.
These people are obviously very, very hot with lawyers. So, you might get sued.
Well, I've told you the story, haven't I? When in the early days of Talk Sport, when we were under different management, we decided to...
Oh, yeah, you had a call from some hotshot lawyer in America,
we decided to... I made a spoof jingle based on a Michael Jackson song, you know. I don't know which song it was.
Probably just as well, because you don't want to sing it again.
It was probably Off the Wall or something like that, you know, something like, and a Talk Sport, we are off the wall, da, 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 like this kind of thing. And then, but I was the program director at the time, and I got a call in my office, you know, a secretary of sales, a call from this guy from some publishing company in America. And I said, I wonder what he wants, you know. And I came on and...
You probably thought he was going to make you famous, didn't you?
Yeah,
you
exactly,
He's obviously heard of my incredible talent, and he wants to give me a job.
Absolutely, yeah. So this guy came on, you know, Mr. Parry, and my name is Dwight D.
Dwight D?
Yeah, Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Dwight D,
something like that, you know. And I represent Sony Music Publishing. You know, it has come to our attention that you have the last person who violated this contract belonging to Michael Jackson had to pay $2 million in damages. I said, what? What are you talking about? Anyway, he was threatening to sue us for $2 million, and that's why we took it off right away. So these things can... These things can be...
well, they can, but I mean, obviously
can be amazing.
What they're kind of going after is people who use it as a, quotes, performance. I mean, if you sing it to your children, for example, or if you sing it to your friends, they're not going to worry about that, are they?
But can you imagine this?
They can't control all of that.
No, it all started with a teacher knocking out, you know, din, 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 on the piano in a classroom, and her sister saying, oh, let's make that a birthday song.
Yeah.
And now it's subject to all sorts of legal constraints. How about this one, Mike? I didn't know this. This is incredible. The American boxing announcer, Michael Buffer, right?
Right, Michael Buffer. Is he the guy that does all of the, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble and all that?
You've just got it in one before I even told you. Has trademarked his catchphrase, let's get ready to rumble, and has now made over $400 million licensing it to movies, commercials and video games.
Really? But when would you ever say, let's get ready to rumble anyway, unless you were him?
I don't know.
I mean, you wouldn't, like, walk into any other kind of sporting situation and go, let's get ready to rumble. But does that mean only he can say it?
Well, I don't know. Honest to God, it says here, the American boxing announcer, Michael Buffer, trademarked his catchphrase, let's get ready to rumble, and has now...
You think we should stop saying it now?
Yeah, has now reportedly made $400 million by licensing it to movies, commercials and video games.
Really?
That's astonishing.
400 million?
Yeah, 400 million.
I'm told, actually, Ant and Dec had a situation recently where they had something where they wanted to use it and they had to change the spelling of it in order not to be in breach of copyright.
They had to
change the spelling of rumble.
Oh, really?
Put an H in it, RH.
Because they tried to do Let's Get Ready to Rumble.
Yeah.
Good God, amazing.
Well, how many times have you said it now?
Oh, 3 times.
I think it's more. I think you might have said it about 10
times.
All
right, 4 times, 5 times. I don't know. But I mean, yeah, but we haven't...
Ching, there'll be a bill coming your way.
No, I tell you what, I know about this. I'm a bit of an expert on copyright law, and I know for a fact
the guy from Sony Music
that during the course of our conversation, we haven't said it to try and build up and enhance our position as broadcasters by making it attractive to the audience listening to us. Yeah. We've been discussing the origins of it, and that's a totally different thing.
And in some ways, giving him some
exactly. We've not used it commercially. Now, what about this one, right? Yeah. A man called David Slater tried to assert copyright over a selfie which had been taken by a crested black macaw. That's a monkey, isn't it?
A selfie that was taken by a monkey?
Yeah, a selfie taken by a monkey in Indonesia who'd snatched his camera.
Oh, okay.
So the black macaw snatches this guy's camera, takes a selfie of itself, right? But he gets the camera back. The US Copyright Office said that copyright can only be protected by works produced by human beings.
Yes, I suppose that's
and
fair
that monkeys have no copyright rights.
So it's the monkey suing now, then?
Well, no, but I mean that's another dreadful abuse of animal rights, isn't it?
Well, I don't think there's any monkeys hoping to set up any picture agencies anytime soon, are there?
Well, no, but I mean, what I'm saying is, you know, we already are fighting a battle to have Tommy the Chimp released.
Yeah.
And I think we should fight for monkeys' rights. Now, Paris Hilton, we all know who she is.
Have you seen the time, by the way?
No, hang on.
We're having absolutely terrible
Paris Hilton
today.
And isn't Paris Hilton in Piers Morgan's advert for the National Lottery?
I don't think she is.
Oh, she's in a new advert anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, just very briefly, she won a lawsuit against Hallmark. They're the people who produce cards, aren't they?
They are.
In 2007 for infringing on her her trademark catchphrase, "That's hot."
I had no idea that was her catchphrase.
Yeah, after it used the expression and her likeness on one of its cards. I didn't know that was her catchphrase, did you?
We better stop saying that as well, then.
But I suppose.
Yeah, I don't suppose you'd say it very often, though.
Isn't it interesting and fascinating stuff?
It is. It is. We'll get back to that monkey that took the picture in a while. But coming up next, we're going to talk to a diet expert, and you'll be able to maybe test some of your obesity campaign things.
Good idea.
Her name is Dina Roach, and she's
looking
in
forward to
Scottsdale, Arizona.
Excellent.
Coming up next on TalkSport.
Love Arizona.
On digital radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. TalkSport.
Breakfast, black coffee, one slice of dry toast. No butter, no jelly, no jam. Lunch, just some lettuce, 2 celery stalks. No booze, no potatoes, no ham. Dinner, 1 chicken wing, broiled, not fried. No gravy, no biscuits, no pie. And this diet and diet and diet and diet and sure is a rough way to die.
This is TalkSport. We are the two Mikes. We found out about a story in the early hours of yesterday morning on the show, actually, when we talked to Simon Johnson, that Jose Mourinho had a bit of a pop at Rafa Benitez over his size, because Mrs. Benitez had said that basically they keep turning up at football clubs all over Europe and cleaning up Jose Mourinho's mess that he's left behind.
Right.
So he said, well, what she should do is basically watch his diet so that she wouldn't have time to think about him, which some people thought was a bit cruel.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you did, but
I thought it was brilliant.
I thought it was quite funny as well. You talk an awful lot about obesity and your campaign to try and get people to lose weight. We're going to talk to a specialist now, Dina Roach, who's the inventor of the travel diet. She's in Scottsdale, Arizona. Dina, very good morning to you.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah,
Hi, Dina, very good,
well
thanks.
Indeed. You may not know the two individuals involved in this little kind of spat. Jose Mourinho, who's the manager of Chelsea, Rafa Benitez, who's the manager of Real Madrid. But it's caused quite a stir because normally people don't make fun of other people's weight, do they?
No, I think it's pretty much the most un-PC thing that you can do these days, right?
Yeah.
Especially in the States.
Well, when you say that, Dina, it's the most un-PC thing that people can do. There's a view now being expressed over here in Great Britain that actually you've got to have harsh love for those that you care for and start telling people they look unattractive to their friends, to members of the opposite sex, to members of their own sex, because they're ugly, because they're big and fat and obese. And unless you tell them that, they're never going to learn that they've got to lose weight.
Ouch, that's it. That is definitely some tough love.
I'm not sure there's any evidence that actually works, though, is there?
Well,
I'm not sure it does. I mean, I think if somebody wants to lose weight and improve themselves, it does. The guy's wife isn't going to make him do it. It's got to come from within. So unless there's a reason for him to do it for himself, he's not going to do it just because somebody's telling him he should.
Yeah, but I mean, if a man was brave enough to say to his wife, or conversely, a wife was brave enough to say to her husband, look, one of the reasons I married you is because you're an attractive human being. If you put 4 or 5 stones on during the course of the early years of our marriage...
You might have to explain what a stone is.
Oh, yeah, pounds.
No, I know what stone is.
Yeah, pounds, yeah, 60, 70 pounds or something like that. During the course of the early years of our marriage... I will then use that as grounds to leave you because you'll no longer be an attractive human being. Now, that would be a great incentive not to become a fat slob.
I agree. And, I mean, there is something to that. In a relationship, I mean, you do have to be attracted to the person that you're with. But I think if you're going to say that, you have to be, ready to support them in trying to lose that weight. You just don't go, you've gained 4 or 5 stones, I'm out of here.
Yeah, exactly, and also...
Yeah, but hang on, you're trying to treat that as an illness. You're trying. Dina, you're treating fatness and obesity as an illness. It's not an illness, it's a lifestyle choice.
Well, no, but you're talking about people who put on like 60 or 70 pounds. I mean, most people don't put on 60 or 70 pounds. I would agree with you,
with Mike, when you just said it's a lifestyle choice. I mean, certainly there are some cases where medication and some other things can cause you to put on weight, but for the most part, people who are larger... It is a lot of, maybe not a lifestyle choice. They're not saying, I want to be fat, but they're saying, I really want to eat that cheesecake.
Yeah, and it's just that their lifestyle is like that. And
it's
also,
greed.
Most people don't put on, 50 or 60 or 70 pounds, do they? I mean, most people put on maybe 10 or 15 or maybe 20 pounds a bit more.
But it starts out at 10 or 15, and then it just, that's 1 year, and then you're doing another 10, and then 5 years down the road, it is 60 or 70.
Exactly. I totally agree. You see, Dino, what
Totally
agree. What I'm thinking is that if we started pointing out to people that being fat is something which is completely unacceptable. So, for instance, fatter people should be charged more to travel on aeroplanes than people who are of normal weight, then we'd get through to people's brains. You can't just drift through life stuffing beef burgers in your mouth and getting fat without having to account for it.
Oh, I agree. I think, but more yes, it would from an attractive standpoint, but quite literally, these people are eating themselves to death.
They are. They are. And in this country, we have something called...
but hang on.
Excuse me, you're interrupting me.
I'm interrupting you, because we're having a conversation here with the three of us. It's not just with you.
But we have something called the National Health Service in this country, Dina, and the National Health Service is spending more and more hundreds of millions of pounds every year treating people for diseases which have come about because of their obesity. So it's an antisocial practice.
Do you know that 90% of diabetes can be stopped by diet, 80% of heart disease and 60% of cancer? Those are lifestyle diseases. Now, the really crazy thing is here in the States, I'm in good shape. But according to my insurance, I'm actually underweight. So I have to lie to my insurance company whenever I re-up, and I have to up my weight, or they're going to ding me for being underweight.
Right.
They actually told me that I'm 5'7" and I weigh 120 pounds. Or actually, I weigh 115, but I tell them 120.
Yeah.
But they tell me that me being 115 is unhealthy. But if I was 189, I would be okay.
So what? They don't charge. So they don't charge you
insane.
if you're overweight a different amount of money, but they charge you if you're underweight. That sounds a bit odd, doesn't it?
They do, because hard for me to understand. I don't know. Maybe they're worried I'm going to become anorexic. I don't know.
Well, that may be the case. What I'm saying is...
It's not a problem for most people. Certainly not a problem for us, is it?
No, it's not a problem for us.
But I should point out to you, Dina, that neither one of us is particularly sylph-like.
No.
Mr. Parry is a very
no,
rabid...
but my point is, they're charging us for being underweight, and you're making a correlation that they could charge for being overweight. And I agree, that's more taxing to the healthcare system.
Yeah.
You'll have more diseases from being overweight than slightly underweight.
I think it should almost be written into law now that you have a duty of care to your own body as well as to other human beings, and you are ignoring that duty of care if you make yourself ill through excessive weight. The other things, Dina, are this. In this country...
I don't want to live in a society where they're putting out like a big sign on any wall saying, if you weigh more than this, somehow we're going to fine you or we're going to punish you.
I wouldn't put that on this wall. I'd put this on the wall. If you are fat and unattractive, then you will not be served in these premises.
Really?
We don't want you to scare our other customers.
Isn't it?
No, it's not bad news for me. No,
the Weatherspoons will be turning you away.
I'm not going to react to that ridiculous jibe. But the other thing is, Dina, we find in this country now, for instance, we are having to build our ambulances bigger than they used to be built because people are now so big and fat, we can't get them into the current ambulances. Now, this is ludicrous. It means that the fat people in our society are now dictating how society responds to life for, the tens, hundreds of millions of people who aren't obese, and the obese are now ruling the world. And I'm against it.
You've gone mad.
I'm at war with the obese.
You've gone completely mad.
No,
you
I
are
haven't.
obese, though.
I'm not.
But you also are obese.
I'm not obese. Don't be ridiculous.
Anyway, let's ask Dina about the travel diet, because that's what she does. What is the travel diet? Is that to help people who are literally not at home?
Well, it actually was built out of the fact that for the last 8 years I've been a travel journalist, and whenever I'm on the road, I eat more and I drink more, yet I lose weight. Mm-hmm. So I started to look at why that was happening. So kind of came up with some strategies about what I'm doing on the road that other people can also do when they travel for business or for pleasure.
Right. And so what did you discover? Did you discover what the reason was, why that was happening to you?
Yeah, it was actually kind of a multitude of reasons. I'm pretty healthy when I'm at home, and I kind of do that same mentality on the road. So I don't look at it as, I'm on vacation. This doesn't count. I deserve it. Well, unfortunately, calories exist on vacation as well as at home. So a lot of it was just, asking restaurants to grill things rather than fry things, to put dressings on the side, and restaurants, at least here in the States, the portions are out of control. So what I would do would either be to split the meal with someone, or I would just put half of it in a box right away.
Mm-hmm.
But the other reason that I could eat a lot more than I did at home is because at home I'm behind a computer for 8 hours a day, not anything active. There, I would be like walking around Paris. So at the end of the day, I've sightseed, but instead I've also walked 5 miles, and I didn't realize I was doing that.
Yeah.
And what about people who sort of
didn't really do much damage?
Mm-hmm.
And what about people who do things like drive a truck for a living? Because that's not always easy to eat properly, is it? I mean, if they're actually stopping at service stations and eating hamburgers and driving another couple hundred miles.
So if you were driving a truck every day, obviously you're not going to have the opportunity to do a lot of exercise during your day. So you do have to make up for that by making better choices about what you eat. And if you're driving a truck, I would bring my own food the same way on an airplane. I would never trust somebody else to feed me on an airplane. I'd bring almonds, dried fruit, power bars, things like that I know what I'm eating. I control what I'm not relying on somebody else. I don't get to the point where I'm so hangry I have to eat everything that they put in front of me that's crap.
And you probably avoid drinking alcohol on a plane as well.
I have to drink alcohol. I don't like turbulence. So the minute the plane shakes, I'm like, excuse me, wine.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's the best reason I've ever heard for getting bladdered on a plane. Yeah, I could indeed. I mean, the point is, Dina, I take what you're saying there about, the almonds and all that kind of stuff, but I don't like almonds and all that kind of stuff.
Almonds?
Almonds.
You don't like almonds?
No.
Almonds?
I regard that
as... You have to find out what it is you like. Could you bring grapes? Could you bring strawberries?
Well, no. I regard all that as rabbit food. So I like, for instance... Literally, and people always mock me for this, I like sort of lean ham sandwiches, you see what I mean? So I always make my own and take them with me. I totally agree with you, because you don't know what sort of garbage is put in the sandwich that somebody else has made and giving to you.
There's nothing, I think bringing a lean ham sandwich is totally fine.
Exactly. That's exactly what I said.
You're a fan of lean ham?
I am, yeah.
No, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to Dina.
But you made a good point. Like, you absolutely have to find something that you want to eat.
Yes.
I mean, when you go on vacation or whenever, you don't want to deprive yourself.
Exactly.
So you find something that it is that you like, or otherwise you won't eat it.
No, I totally agree.
If I'm giving the choice between carrots, which I don't like, and gelato, which I do, I'm going to pick the gelato.
Yeah, sure. I agree.
I think the travel diet could work very well for you. Dina, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much indeed, Dina.
The inventor of the travel diet, because you can get on a plane, have a lean ham sandwich, and drink as much wine as you like.
Yes, that's right.
Sounds like a good diet for you.
No, that's right. I would approve of that. I mean, I don't know why you suddenly got aerated there when I was talking to Dina about obesity.
Well,
it's such a huge problem. No, I should get worked up. If the rest of the world got worked up about obesity, people wouldn't be dying like flies from the fat-related
I don't think people are dying like flies.
They are.
No, they're not.
They are.
We've got much more to talk about.
You should put a time lock on people's fridges so they can't raid them in the middle of the night.
I'm going to put a time lock on you in a second. Look into the light. This is TalkSport. TalkSport, we are the two Mikes. Porky Vision coming up in the next hour, and of course there will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on this morning. I've got a couple of messages for you that have come in on the text. Mark from Coventry says, Porky, you're ugly and fat. I'm telling you this because I care and worry about your health.
All right, well, I'll take that then. Yeah. If that is a genuine sort of, right, now let this get into your head, and I think, if I'm ugly and fat in the eyes of that person, then I want to become unugly and attractive. You know,
it's a big job, that, I think. Derek in Pincoid says, Dear Mike and Porky, despite eating a lot of junk food, a lot of my friends and workmates think I am underweight. I'm about 7.5 stone and about 5'2". 5'2" inches. And with his nickname, how can Porky keep having a go at people who he thinks are fat?
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, but I do. I don't care about my own self-image.
No.
I know that the world is going to collapse under the weight of fat people. The globe itself might implode because there's so many fat people on the surface.
It's an unusual obsession that you've now got, though.
It's not an obsession at all. It's an observation. And listen, talking about that, by the way, talking about that, I wanted to tell you about something else I've discovered.
Go on, then.
And that is that I predict. Are we doing predictions tonight, by the way?
We'll do a Porky prediction.
All right, well, I'll predict something else.
Well, you can predict something else then.
Yeah. No, I'm telling you now what's going to happen. There is going to be a world rice shortage very soon. Yeah.
Why?
Without a shadow of a doubt. Because I found out that in China, the authorities there are now desperately trying to turn their people, the majority of whom live in rural locations and live off the land.
Working in a rural economy.
Live off the land and eat rice. They're encouraging them massively to swap to potato.
Really?
The trouble with rice is it needs an awful lot of water to be produced, and that's why they call them paddy fields.
A lot of irrigation, yeah.
A lot of irrigation, a lot of water. China has now become
there's no problem with water in China.
There is. China has now become so industrialised that most of the water in China now is needed for industrial purposes, right? They haven't got enough water now, really, to serve all the land.
Right.
You need 10 times as much water to produce a pound of rice as you do to produce a pound of potatoes, and they're running out of the resources to produce rice.
I can't think of very many Chinese food dishes that have potato in there.
Well, they're going to
have to revolutionise their entire diet.
They're going to. They are revolutionising the whole diet. There's a guy called Ku Dongyu.
Oh yeah,
and he's the Chinese
rice czar.
No, the agriculture minister.
Oh, okay.
And he told the World Potato Congress in Yanqing, which is north of Beijing.
Where is it?
It's Yanqing,
right,
and it's north of Beijing.
Okay.
And they had a conference there recently about this problem. Honest to God, it was called the World Potato Congress, and he's told them we're going to up our potato output by 10 times.
But he hasn't said that there's going to be a rice shortage, has he?
There is going to be a rice shortage.
No, but this is what you're saying.
No, I'm telling you. I'm predicting there's going to be a rice shortage because China's got to turn to potato because they simply cannot produce enough rice to feed its own people.
Yeah, but if they like potatoes, then they'll eat less rice, and then there'll be more rice for the rest of the world.
Well, that's what I mean. They're going to all be encouraged now.
And is China the only place that rice comes from anyway? Doesn't it get made elsewhere?
I think 99% of the rice in the world, you walk into a Chinese restaurant anywhere from Chicago to San Francisco to Buenos Aires to Sydney, and the rice in your Chinese meal will probably have come from a paddy field in China.
You think so?
Now, they're not going to be able to produce enough rice soon to feed their own people, which means that the export of rice from China will dry up, to almost nothing. It means we won't have any rice anywhere in the world because we don't have paddy fields anywhere else in the world. Right. Well, I mean, they're doing places like Vietnam and all that kind of stuff.
In other parts of Southeast Asia.
Yeah, but not in the Western world. And therefore, and what they fear famine in China unless they all turn to potatoes soon. So there is going to be a world rice shortage.
Well,
so
I'm not sure about that because you also said there was going to be a Ferrero Rocher shortage.
Yeah.
And remember after that, what happened? Loads and loads of Ferrero Rocher sort of stacks seem to be being put on
but that's because I alerted.
That's because I
alerted the authorities of the crisis
you
surrounding.
Said there was a nut crisis, wasn't there?
Yeah, which hazelnuts? Yeah, the hazelnut crisis. Yeah,
but that never happened, did it?
But I alerted the authorities, and I'm alerting the authorities again here. So if you think that within the next 1 or 2 years you'll be able to go down to your local Chinese takeaway, having ordered, sweet and sour pork with fried rice, you'll be told when you get there, this is sweet and sour pork with fried potato.
I don't think that's what's going to catch on. I can't see that catching on.
It's what's going to happen.
I'm just looking at the top 20 rice producers by country.
Yes.
And China does produce by far and away the most of it.
Yes.
India second, Indonesia third, and then Vietnam, Thailand, Bangladesh, Burma, Philippines and Brazil. All the way down to the United States, who produce a bit of it as well.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
We don't produce any, apparently.
No, we don't. That's what I'm saying.
Well, maybe we should just eat less rice.
No, that's what I'm saying. In the Western world, we don't produce rice. And when it dries up in China, then obviously resources will dry up in other places that you've mentioned, Vietnam and all that kind of stuff.
So what's your advice then?
Well, my advice is get used to eating potato.
Right.
Because the rice is going to go out, I'm telling you. It says here, British companies based in China at a place called Yanqing.
Yeah, that's where the conference was.
That's where the conference was, absolutely. That's right, north of Beijing. Are also saying, look, China's appetite is changing. We welcome it. There could be King Edwards growing in China in the future. We are now massively trying to start a drive to import potatoes into China, and that comes from a guy called Stuart McIntyre, who is managing director of Strathmore Potatoes.
So this could be a big thing for British exports.
Absolutely. Strathmore Potatoes is based in Dundee.
Yeah, but how would you sell potatoes to a country that doesn't really consume them?
Because
what would you say is a great selling point of a potato?
Well, listen, when old Ku Dongyu, who is the China agriculture minister, is telling the country we've got to change from rice to potato, who else have you got to convince?
Well, he just
who
said
else have you got to convince?
No, he said that they're going to bring in more potato production.
Yes, that's
right.
They're
going to change it completely.
They're going to give, what they're going to give is, right, and this is the killer fact which cements my argument, Ku Dong Yu is going to give financial incentives to farmers to change their paddy fields into potato fields.
That's fine, but I'm talking about how would you sell it to somebody as a food, because the Chinese people are not used to eating potatoes.
Well, they're going to have to, because there won't be any rice.
Well, I can't think of anything in a Chinese, diet that includes potatoes.
Well, it'll be potato or starve. I mean, you've got to use your imagination here, Mike. Yeah. Think of a Chinese dish with rice on the plate, remove the rice and put potato in there instead. That's what I'm saying.
So sweet and sour chicken and what? Potato?
Yes, that's right.
Boiled potato?
Yes, probably.
Don't like the sound of that at all.
Yeah, it will
Mashed potato?
Maybe.
Chips?
Well, they already eat Chinese with chips, don't they? How many times have you seen people with a Chinese curry and a plate of chips? You see it all the time. No, in Chinese restaurants in this country.
Well, that doesn't really mean that they're going to do it in China, does
Well, they're going to have to.
People eat chips with Chinese food here because they're drunk, usually.
They're going to have to. And anyway, you don't get rice withdrawal symptoms if you stop eating rice and start eating potato.
But if you eat a diet without potato in it and you suddenly put potatoes into the diet, what I'm saying to you is, you've got a kind of creative bent. Why don't you come up with some kind of way of selling it to the Chinese people and say, you must eat these potatoes, they're really good?
Well, do you know how you could do it?
How?
What you could do is you could grate the potato, on a cheese grater, and then just sort of fry it up, and then it looks almost like rice anyway, doesn't it?
No.
Yes, it looks like you would. It would look like fried rice.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't.
Because fried rice is kind of brown, isn't it?
Well, it depends what you fry it with.
I always eat boiled rice. I like white boiled rice.
Do you?
But I'm telling you, all things like Dr. Ben's and all that kind of stuff.
Dr. Ben's.
Is it called Dr. Ben's?
He's the guy that started the car company.
Oh, well, what's the rice that you see in packets in supermarkets? Isn't
Uncle Ben's.
Oh, Uncle Ben's, that's right. Yeah, Uncle Ben's, yeah. All those sort of things, they're going to disappear off the shelves. I'm telling you, there'll be a world rice shortage within 18 months.
Yeah, but it won't matter to people in this country that much if rice disappears completely. But what I'm saying, and you're not getting, is how are you going to convince the Chinese people to eat potatoes, which are completely alien to them?
Well, that's not my problem. That's not my problem. That's the problem of Ku Dong Yu, who's China's agriculture minister. He's got that problem.
Are you going to stop eating rice now, then, to be part of this kind of help to the
Chinese?
Well,
no. I would like to enjoy rice as long as it's around, but I'm telling you, it's not going to be around for much longer. Do you know what I think could replace rice?
What could replace
it? How about this? And we could get involved in this as well.
How about quinoa?
What about pasta? What about spaghetti?
Yeah, what about it?
What about spaghetti? Spaghetti, so sweet and sour pork with spag.
Yeah, but this guy's not talking about spaghetti, he's talking about potatoes.
Yes, talking about potatoes.
You can't grow spaghetti, really, can you?
Well, I suppose you can't, really. What's in spaghetti?
Well, pasta's made from wheat, usually, isn't
it? Wheat, is it? Yeah. Well, I haven't got any wheat because all the paddy fields are flooded. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, get used to it, folks, and you heard it here first, OK? I reckon...
When do you reckon this rice shortage is going to kick in, then? Because
very soon.
What will happen is people will be sending us loads and loads of pictures of piles of rice all over the place.
Well, that might be today.
Yeah.
But in 18 months' time... they won't be able to send us pictures of rice because there won't be any. I would say to everybody, get your palate adjusted to eating your Chinese takeaway.
You know what you might...
And by the way, Indian takeaways come with rice, don't they?
If you want the rice,
yes, that's right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, listen, that's an easy one. I can easily exist with an Indian takeaway and... that naan bread.
Naan bread.
Easy. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I love it.
Well, in fact, if you go to India and you ask for rice and bread, they look at you as if you've gone mad. Because,
really?
You normally eat one
or
the
other. Yeah, I see. Yeah,
you don't actually have the whole lot. But are you worried that you're now going to start some kind of buying spree for people who want to go out and stockpile rice?
No, because how long does rice last? Does it last forever?
Well, not forever.
No, but, I mean, it's in a sealed packet.
Yeah, I don't think it goes off particularly quickly.
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So people will have it all stored in their house anyway. But I just thought I'd let the country know because it's a very, very important cultural change. Yeah. You say it's not that important to us.
Well, it's going to be much more important for the people in China. That's what I'm saying.
What else do we eat rice in this country? I'm just trying to think.
Well, there's rice in paella, for example.
Paella, that's another one. Paella, that's another one. And the other one that I like is that dish we were talking about the other night, and I forgot what it was called.
What?
It's like...
Risotto?
Risotto, that's it. Yeah, risotto.
Yeah, that's a different kind of rice, so I'm not sure if that's actually grown in China.
But anyway, look, I just thought I'd let everybody know because it's going to be a major problem, and you heard it here first, OK? And, of course... if we're quick enough into the mix, British companies should get over to China now, go and see Ku Dong Yu, the Chinese agriculture minister, and say to him, look, you've got to change because your rice is running out because you haven't got enough water in your paddy fields to grow rice, and you can grow, by the way, you can grow the same size of crop of potato with 1/10 of the water needed for that crop of rice. And they're running out of water.
Yeah, but presumably an awful lot of what they're growing is for export as well, right? Whereas
yes, that's
what you're going to suggest to them is that they grow this for their own use, so they're not going to make so much money, are they?
Well, the point is, the issue in any country when you've got a big export industry is how much you export and how much you leave to the indigenous population.
Yes.
And that, for instance, was one reason why we had the Irish potato famine. No. Because, of course, not enough potatoes were left in Ireland, the crop failed and all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? And so they've got to get the balance right there. But I can tell you now, it's obvious from what I'm reading, from what I know...
Maybe this is a business opportunity for you. You could go and start a potato company in China.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, I've got plenty of time to do that, haven't I?
Why not?
I'll fly over there next week,
You've got many things, strings to your bow.
Fly over to Beijing and set up a potato manufacturing unit. What an idiot.
Well, if
iron
ore's going down the pan, you want to put your money into something else.
Well, I haven't got an iron ore factory either, actually, funny enough.
I presume that you might have had some kind of stock in it or something like that.
Absolute nonsense. Really? The only reason I told people about iron... this is all related, by the way. Yeah. This is all related. The reason that the iron ore industry is closing down is because demand from China has significantly dropped.
Stopped because they're not building anything.
Exactly. Right. 8% drop in the Chinese stock market earlier this week.
Right.
One of the reasons is bound to be connected to the fact that they're finding it more and more difficult to grow rice because they're running out of water.
Yeah, so you keep saying. Strange, isn't it, how you're such a Chinese expert?
If you could understand the economic cycle the way that I do, the way that all these events are linked together in what we call the monetary snake, then...
The monetary snake?
Yes, the monetary snake.
OK.
Then you'd have, honestly, Mike, a much better understanding of how the world works.
I would.
I think you walk around in a fog of ignorance, and it appalls me.
It only appears that way to you. Do you know what the score is in the MLS All-Star game, by the way?
What is the score?
Apparently it's 2-0 to the All-Stars against Tottenham.
Oh.
Kaká and David Villa have scored, and that's Tottenham's game. That's the one that Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard are not playing in because they're injured.
The MLS hasn't been around that long, and they've already got an All-Stars team.
Well, they have an All-Star game every year.
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh, OK.
It's part of the sort of American culture.
OK, excellent. Yeah, we'll all look forward to that.
I thought you would have known that, but I think you walk around in a fog of ignorance, but never mind.
No, not of huge interest to me compared to the
rice shortage.
The world shortage of rice, which is about to descend upon us, which is much more important to our listeners because of it affects the quality of their lives. The fact that there's an MLS All-Stars game does not affect the quality of their life. Just thought I'd remind you of that, OK?
OK. This is TalkSport. We are the two Mikes. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on, and with reference to Porky Vision coming up a little bit later in this hour. Roy, who earlier on asked you not to give away the ending of Poldark, even though you weren't planning to, gave away the ending as well. And he goes, "Thanks for nothing, Porky. I had no idea how it ended."
Oh no,
Spoiler.
Come on, you must have done.
Well, no, because it hasn't been shown there yet. He's about to watch it, that's the thing.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. Look, try and unlisten to that bit of the show, mate. Really sorry about that, but... You'd have found out soon anyway. So
well, he would have found out when he was watching the show. Now you've ruined the ending for him. So.
Listen, by the way, you said to me in that last bit we were doing about the rice and all that, and obesity and all that kind of stuff. You said to me rather cruelly, because you thought you were, trying to hurt me.
I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was just trying to help you.
Yeah. You said, why don't you look in a mirror, OK?
Yeah.
Well, the answer to that is that one of these days we will all be looking in mirrors because I have discovered a situation in which very soon we will have what's called a smart mirror in our homes, right?
Well, what's a smart mirror? Is that like the one you've got that makes you think you look like Brad Pitt?
No, and I'm not going to respond to a stupid joke like that. What it is that this mirror has got all sorts of sensor points behind it, and each morning when you look at it, it can detect whether or not something in your face has changed or your eyes have changed or something in your body weight has changed.
What, you mean you've set the sort of default position for it at some point?
No, it will then give you a printout of, you should go and see your doctor about this or that or the rest,
The mirror will give you a printout?
Yes.
How's that going to work then?
Well, what I mean is, if you think about it, it's called a smart mirror, right?
Yeah.
And it's got all these sensors behind it.
These things already exist, do they?
Yeah, they already exist, yeah. It's called a multispectral imaging system. It uses 5 cameras to capture specific wavelengths of light and a skin heater to stimulate your face, analyses tissue for fat content and blood for
Sounds a bit over the top.
Hang on. Blood for hemoglobin levels, OK?
Right.
And a 3D scanner constructs a digital model of the face for analysis by software for shape changes, such as weight gain or swelling. And there's another bit of software in it which checks for signs of stress.
So it's a computer, basically? It's a scanner of some kind, right?
Stress,
is it full length,
fatigue or anxiety. No, it's the size of a picture on your wall.
Oh, okay.
It's the sort of mirror you'd hang up in your, in the old days, in your lounge above the fireplace.
So it doesn't do the whole body, though? It just does your face, then, does it?
Yeah, it does your face, basically. It reads your face.
Right.
But it also, it has a device in it called the Wise Sniffer, right? Because it's called a Wise Mirror, but it's spelled W-I-Z-E. And it's being developed by a company called Semioticons Research Group, It's backed by European Commission money. And
so it's been done here, is it?
Yeah, it's a 5.4 million euro project. Okay, right. Multispectral imaging system.
How much are these things going to cost, do you reckon?
Well, are going to cost quite a lot. But it says the Wise Sniffer, because it has a thing that takes in your breath. Captures breath samples to detect toxic molecules. Right. That suggests the use
That'd be quite useful for you then, wouldn't it?
Well, it's more useful for you if you listen, because it suggests the use and the extent of tobacco on your breath and in your body and alcohol. And the whole process takes 1 minute each morning. And then the Semioticons researchers, because it relays all the information back to a laboratory.
That's where it starts to get tricky, isn't it? Because then somebody's actually tracking this information, somebody's storing it, and what do they do with it?
Yeah.
Maybe they give it to your insurance company.
Hang on. Are developing a personalised guidance system that crunches the information from the cameras and the breath sampler to provide a personalised lifestyle recommendation pattern of your life. How about that?
Well, I don't think I'm interested in having one of those.
I don't think that's incredible.
Well, it is incredible, but I don't think that I would like to get one of those things, though, because
I would.
I wouldn't know what they were doing with the information.
Well, hang
that
on.
is one of the things that we all now worry about, is when information is being captured by the computer in your car, by the computer in your house, by the TV that you've got, and all of this information and data is being stored somewhere, and nobody's really sure what's going on with it.
Yeah, but this is a fantastic development. It means on a day-to-day basis... Yeah. Your body is being examined by,
Yeah, well, that would be fine if it was only telling you what was going on, but it's not just telling you, is it?
No, but it has to go to somebody else, because what I'm saying is you don't have enough knowledge to interpret what the mirror is seeing. Do you see what I mean? So the mirror has to send its data back to an expert who can then look through it and say, oh, hang on. And what they could do is they could detect the start of problems, diseases or whatever from the very early stages.
Say, for example, you had a health insurance policy that was with some private company, and then they sent all that information to them, unbeknownst to you, and then suddenly they rang you one day and said, because we've had a look in your smart mirror, we're not going to bother insuring you anymore because you've got this problem.
Well, that would be good, because they'd have been alerted to the fact you've got a health problem.
Well, it wouldn't be good for you, though, if you were then not able to get insurance.
It would alert you to a health problem. And what I'm saying is, on the one which is called the Wise Sniffer, which captures your breath, that presumably could immediately detect the start of things like lung cancer or, some problem with your heart, in my case, or something like that. I think it's a most brilliant development.
Are you going to put an order in for one then?
Well, look, why are you always so churlish and dismissive of these things?
I'm not dismissive.
On so many occasions...
I'm asking you whether you're going to buy one.
On so many occasions, I come on this show and I talk to you about technological developments.
Yes.
I talk to you about things that you wouldn't even dream of.
True.
Because I do lots of research, and because, I have an inherent health problem myself, I keep my eye on medical developments.
Yes.
And every time I come up with something like this, which could obviously change people's lives for the better, you're dismissive.
Well, I'm not dismissive. I'm just asking for you to get one.
Am I going to buy one? Well, of course I'm not going to buy one, you idiot.
Why not?
Because they probably cost about $8 million or something. And how would I get it fitted into my house? And they haven't even got a laboratory yet to take in all the information.
Oh, so
I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop talking to you about these things and stop telling you about these great advancements in medical science, because you just get so dismissive about it. You make me sick.
I don't know why you're getting so grumpy about it.
Well, because I'm getting no response from you about the positivity of what this can all be about.
Well,
in many ways, I'm alerting our listeners to things which are really going to revolutionise and change their lives. The fact that they're not going to get any rice in future, the fact that soon there will be smart mirrors installed as de rigueur in new houses for you to be able to check your own health every morning. That's a big step forward.
All I was doing was questioning whether that was a good thing, because this information machine that was going to collect more information, health information on you, might be misused. I think a lot of people would have that problem. Now, here's a question for you.
Yeah, go on.
When you were a boss, not just here but elsewhere, did you used to give appraisals to your employees?
I used to refuse.
You used to refuse to give them?
I hated the appraisal system, and I rebelled against it massively. Somebody tried to appraise me once, and do you know who it was? It was Bernard Shrimsley.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because everybody had to be appraised.
It was unbelievable. Why do you ask, anyway?
No, well, because apparently bosses have decided that the staff appraisal is now basically redundant.
That's a step forward.
There's not much point in doing it anymore.
That's a step forward.
2/3 of companies now basically don't do them at all. 1 in 20's dropped them altogether.
Were you going to... did you ever do any?
Yeah, I think I had to at one point. Yeah.
Well, you had to appraise somebody else, or you were appraised?
I had to appraise somebody else and be appraised, because there was this whole ridiculous notion at one point in the newspaper business where, in order to get a pay rise, they would have to try and appraise you.
To me, it was always a joke.
Yeah.
And Sir Nicholas, who was your boss of mine, said, you've got to go through the appraisal. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you've got to appraise your stuff, and then I've got to get somebody to appraise you. I said, who's going to appraise me? They said, Bernard. Bernard was a consultant on the paper.
Right.
He'd been a distinguished editor of the News of the World and the Sun. But he
didn't have very much to do.
He didn't have anything to do.
Right.
Nick just took him on in the old boys network and paid him a few quid a week to just float around the office. Yeah. But he never came up with an idea. He never had any input. That wasn't his role. And he was going to appraise me and how I did my job. I know. You know, as a news editor, 24 hours a day.
Ridiculous standard questions like,
stupid, really.
What job would you like to be doing this time next year? Yeah. I was appraised by that guy whose name I'm not going to give, because he still works out there in the business. And he, for that question, and he was one of these people that took it very seriously. And was noting down
they all did. Yeah.
All the answers.
Yeah.
And when he asked what job do you want this time next year, I said I want your job this time next year.
Yeah. Good.
And he was like, I don't know if I should put that down. Yeah. I said, well, why not?
Yeah.
Said,
you asked me the question, I give you an answer.
That's what I want to do.
But the other thing is, when he said you've got to appraise your staff, I said, what do you mean? I said, I'm working closely with them 24 hours a day. Some of these guys are ringing me at 3 o'clock in the morning because they've been tracking down, a great story that down in Devon, or they've been working all night on a boat going down off the coast of Wales or something like that. I said, I know what their strengths and their weaknesses are.
But the other reason they came in, though, at one point was because you had to appraise people kind of out of the business, didn't you? You had to say, right, well, if we have to sack, 10% of the staff, what you have to do is give them an appraisal which says that they're not as good as the guy next to them, and then they get made redundant.
It was the most rubbish thing we ever come across. And I'll tell you what, mate, it went through a period which also coincided with going to management development courses.
Right.
So for 3 days, you went to this hotel where this jerk would stand at the front of the class and tell you about how to motivate yourself, motivate your staff. Right. And then you'd go off into little groups with building blocks.
Did you actually do all that?
Yeah, I did. I had to do it. And you had to build, a sensible construction out of these building blocks.
What did you build with them?
It was rubbish. The whole thing was rubbish. And what's more, when we got the guy bladderated one night, during the second night of the course, he actually admitted it was all a load of complete baloney, but he was very happy to take £2,000 a day from the Express management to talk gobbledygook to mid-market executives and all that.
I know.
It was utter rubbish. The whole thing was rubbish.
Yeah, well, I've got a consulted story for you as well. I'll tell you that in a moment.
Good.
This is Talk Sport. Porky Vision's coming up very soon as well. We are the Two Mics. This is Talk Sport. The Selco Predictor is returning, of course, for the new season. If you register this week, you could still win £500. I'll tell you a bit more about that. This is the point in the show. Yesterday, I think, when you predicted England were going to win the third test in the Ashes and then win the Ashes altogether as well. Which, as you say, was not a bad prediction, considering what happened up at Edgbaston. What have you got for us today? What's your prediction going to be today?
My prediction is that we are very imminently going to see the collapse of society in France.
In France?
The complete collapse of society in France, OK?
Things are not looking good there,
Things are not looking good there, both north and south in France, OK? It's a country under siege within, OK? Right. It's going to collapse. First of all, it's going to collapse on the northern borders with England, because we're eventually going to have to close that border. There's no other way of doing it.
I don't think they're going to brick up the Channel Tunnel, are they?
Well, that sounds very... I know that sounds very severe, and people are going to have a laugh and say, you're being extreme, you're being xenophobic and all that kind of stuff. I'm not. We've got to stop this movement of people, because the problem is, if you let it go naturally to where it's going now, this country will end up with all the refugees in the world. Yeah. Literally. Because we are the most generous country in the world, and they'll all head here. And the more that head here and get in, who write home to say this is a wonderful country, the more will come. So we're going to have to seal that border. Now, when we seal that border, you've got to remember that means that France then have a closed door at the top of their country.
And what about people going on holiday there from here? Will they not be able to do that anymore?
Well, as long as they go on a ferry. Yeah. But they won't be able to have free movement under the earth anymore to France. It just simply won't work anymore. Now, the reason I'm talking about it is because you've got the situation in France, this is why I'm predicting this, which is chaotic and out of control. But that is only an indication of the fact that France itself is chaotic and out of control, OK?
Yeah.
The situation is...
It's a massive country, France.
It's a massive country, France, but it's chaotic and out of control. And there is too much wealth in France, which is centred on A, Paris, and B, the principalities in the south of France, Monaco, Monte Carlo, and, of course, the cities of France on the Mediterranean coast.
Well, like Cannes and Nice.
Cannes and Nice and all that kind of stuff, OK? Now, the other problem is the report this week, because in this country we have fantastically been able to more or less live in harmony with our multicultural society.
Yeah.
More or less. I mean, OK, we've had riots in the street, nothing to do with multiculturalism.
Yeah.
It has to do with outbreaks of lawlessness and that kind of stuff. But more or less, we've been able to do it and get it right. In France, that's not the case. In France, it's very, very, very much more difficult because what they've done is they've herded a lot of people from their former colonies in North Africa into what they even call themselves ghettos, OK? And the trouble with these ghettos is they breed resentment and all that kind of stuff. A case reported in France last week of a lady in a park sunbathing in a bikini, told by a group of other ladies of
I saw that story,
a different religion to cover up and not be shameful in the way that she was exposing her body and all this kind of stuff. Once you've got to that situation, you've got a tinderbox society. I think France is about to blow up. The other issue, of course...
There's a lot of labour strife as well, isn't there?
Well, I was about to say, the other issue, of course, is that France is on the brink of economic collapse. Now, people will say, oh, you're being ridiculous and exaggerating. I'm not. Hollande, the old French president... François Hollande, the French president, who seems to care more about how many mistresses he's got than actually looking after the French economy, which he is not looking after and is unable to control, has now let loose another round of public spending whereby a huge percentage of what they produce in France is now consumed by the government itself. That will lead to economic collapse. So you've got strife within communities in France, you've got economic collapse, you've got the situation at the border, but the other thing is, the French people are different to us in terms of how they address this problem. We don't burn tyres outside the Channel Tunnel.
They've got a great history of sort of public demonstration, haven't they?
We don't set fire...
Maybe it just looks much worse than it really is.
We don't set fire to lorry loads of lamb being sent from Wales and England into the continent. The lorries are then hijacked on the other side of the tunnel and they're set fire to by rampaging French farmers who once again are complaining about the lack of price that they're getting for the goods in France, OK? Despite the fact that when the European community was set up, the biggest swizzle to the English people when we joined was the Common Agricultural Policy, which basically gave all French farmers...
This is a very long prediction, by the way.
Gave all French farmers huge amounts of money for producing goods at a totally non-economic rate. It was a fix. It was a fix. Just make sure that the whole of the rest of the world subsidised French farmers, even though they're massively inefficient, right? So you've got that situation now coming home to roost because of their poor economic situation. French farmers protesting, burning lorry loads full of lamb, setting fire to tyres, and worse, again this week, a development, now taking their herds of boars and pigs into towns because they say they can no longer sell them to abattoirs and letting them loose in supermarkets to rampage around supermarkets. It's in disarray. I think the society is going to break down altogether. I am predicting the demise of the great country of France, which I think has been badly led and is about to descend into chaos.
Oh, OK. Well, thank you very much indeed. There are some people who still think it's quite a good place to go for a holiday, though, but, I mean, I guess that won't change their view.
I'd still like to go to Paris for a night out. I think it's brilliant. I love it. Yeah. But how can I get there these days?
Yeah, well, you could fly, I suppose.
I suppose you could fly. Yeah, good
just
thinking.
Fly right over the
fly over the problems,
Yeah, well, that's another good prediction from Porky. We don't know really when that's going to happen, but a very interesting sort of...
I mean, if you've asked
thing that you've posed there.
If you'd have asked me an hour ago, of course, I'd have substituted that prediction for my the rice
for the rice
situation.
Yeah, but that's a different prediction. If you want to make predictions, of course, on the Selco Predictor, it's not quite as complicated as that. All you've got to do is predict a few football results, and just for registering this week, there's another £500 prize out there. You go to head to talksport.com/predictor or download the brand new app right now. Now, we're not far away from Porky Vision.
That's right.
So I don't know if you want to give a taster of some of the shows that you're going to be looking at.
No, I'm going to keep that to myself.
You're going to keep that to yourself?
Yeah. One thing that really got me this week, Mike, by the way, we're talking about law and order and all that kind of stuff. Did you see that the police... 36 hours after Lord Sewell, who's now been renamed Lord Sewer because of his shenanigans and his lifestyle. 36 hours after he was exposed in papers, allegedly snorting cocaine and cavorting prostitutes, the police suddenly decide to raid his apartment.
Yes.
So they turn up with the
old battering ram.
The battering ram, smash his door down. There's nobody in there.
Right.
I mean, he's already had 36 hours to clear the place of drugs anyway, if that's what they were looking for.
Right.
I'm not sure what they were looking for.
No, I don't know.
But this was another demonstration from the Metropolitan Police of showboating. You know, there's a problem, right, we'll be seen. Because they invited the cameras along to take photos.
Yeah.
So this was a showboating situation where, is it Bernard Hogan Howe, is the Metropolitan Commissioner, Sir Bernard Hogan Howe, and presumably said, right, we must be seen to be doing something. What were they doing? What were they doing?
Well, they were looking for, I suppose, some kind of evidence to see whether it was going to be possible to charge him with something.
36 hours after he was exposed in the paper?
Yeah.
Why didn't they do it like 36 seconds after and then try and catch him red-handed or something if they think he's doing something?
I don't know.
But
because
anyway,
also this week it's that story's come out that basically if you get burgled, you won't see a police officer around at your place
I was about to compare it with that.
Yeah.
This comes in the same week.
Because they haven't got enough police officers to do it. But to be honest, I think that's already happened, hasn't it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've fortunately never been... I have been burgled, actually. I was burgled when we were in America once. Somebody smashed the door of my apartment in North London down with a sledgehammer.
Oh, when you were away?
Yeah, but there was nothing in the flat. I hadn't even rented it out or anything like that, so it didn't matter. But that has led me ever since to make sure I have good security precautions.
Yes.
You know,
and you've got the big door on the penthouse.
No, I've got the garden gate.
Well, it's a kind of iron door, though, isn't it?
It's a garden gate.
Well, it looks like an iron door.
It doesn't look like an iron door.
But it's in a corridor, though.
Yeah, but it's painted white, not black,
right?
And it's got fantastic metalwork showing flowers and plants and things on it.
It does look a bit strange where it sits.
No, it doesn't.
Though.
No, it doesn't. No.
But you're fortunate if you haven't been burgled. I mean, some people have. I mean, Angle Di Maria, of course, hasn't been the same, has he? Since,
exactly.
His house was
completely
burgled.
wrecked his life.
And I don't know whether the police came to that. But I think a lot of people who have what they would call kind of, that sort of crime committed, never see a police officer. All you do is you ring the police station, you get a crime number, you contact the insurance company, they ask you for the crime number, and that's it.
But that is exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so what I feel these days is that, a lot of what the police do now, and certainly in the Metropolitan Police area, is all about their public image rather than being an effective police force.
Well, they say that they're concentrating more on fraud, and they're concentrating more as well on sexual offences, which are one of the few offences that are apparently on the rise. Burglary doesn't seem to be on the rise.
Fraud normally takes place in city institutions and that sort of thing, in banks and all that.
Right.
But the point is, the reason we employ a police force, and it's paid for by the taxpayer...
Mind there's an awful lot of kind of credit card fraud and stuff like that they must get involved in.
There is, I certainly agree, but that can be done within their police stations at their desks. The point is, when you're burgled, it's because you've been the victim of crime.
Yeah.
And police were put on this earth in the first place to combat crime.
Yes.
Police are here as an effective deterrent to crime. And if burglars know, we can break into any number of houses and the police aren't even going to investigate it, there'll be a massive increase in burglaries. So even if they've decided that they can't make it a priority anymore, to come out publicly, because I think, wasn't it some chief inspector, chief constable somewhere in one of the districts of this country. I think it was a she, actually.
Yeah, it was. It was Sarah Thornton.
That's right. And is she from Yorkshire? Because... Oxfordshire. I think she's David Cameron's chief constable.
She is David Cameron's chief constable, yeah.
That's right. And she comes out and says, well, I haven't got time to investigate burglars anymore. I think the Prime Minister, David Cameron, should have rung her up and said, look, you're my chief constable, both in the sense that I'm the Prime Minister and both in the sense that I am a homeowner in the area where you're chief constable.
Well, I bet if his house got burgled, there'd be a few police turning up.
Well, his house won't get burgled because it's constantly monitored by the police.
Exactly.
And there's a police guard on the gate.
Right.
So he's all right, Jack, isn't he? But I hope he takes that up with her because she's his local police chief constable and says, what do you mean you won't look after people whose houses get burgled? That's your job.
Yeah.
Get on with it.
I know.
And stop trying to be part of the social services and start being a police force again.
It does seem very bizarre, doesn't it? One of the many things that are strange in this current world in which we live. Now, coming up very shortly, it's time for Porky Vision.
Right.
And, of course, we've got lots more to do as well.
Exactly.
We are the two Mikes. This is TalkSport.
The new season returns, and TalkSport brings you the very best live football.
What a passage of play that was!
Exclusive national radio commentary of 64 Barclays Premier League games, including Chelsea versus Swansea, Spurs versus Everton, and Manchester United versus Liverpool.
That cat's a terrific performance!
Plus full match commentary of the Champions League, the FA Cup, the League Cup, and the Europa League.
And he scored again!
Kicking off this Sunday with live commentary of the Community Shield, Arsenal versus Chelsea.
What a way to bounce back!
It's an unstoppable force of world-class football. This season on TalkSport.
That music signifies one thing, of course. It's time for Porky Vision. It is that time of the week. It is a much sort of anticipated TV review of some of the stuff that's been on that you've been watching and some of the stuff that was made a while ago. And I don't know whether you've got yourself ready for whatever the revelations are that you're going to give us.
Nearly. Look, I'm going to concentrate almost all of my TV review tonight in one show.
OK.
But I've forgotten what it's called.
Is it a good show or a bad show?
It's appalling. Absolutely appalling.
Right.
And I made some notes on it. I'm searching through my notebook here. It's awful, and it's about... actually, you will recognise with it, it's about the Bloomsbury set in Bloomsbury.
Oh, OK.
Which is
Virginia Woolf and all that.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Now, that was near where you were born, wasn't it? You know what I mean?
It was kind of, Euston area, I suppose.
That's right, yeah.
Not a million miles away.
Yeah, but hang on, it's called Life in Squares, is that right? Yeah, it is. Yeah, Life in Squares,
Could
OK?
be.
Now, it's appalling, right? It's dreadful. And some of the reviewers agree with me, like Christopher Stevens, in the Daily Mail.
Uh-huh.
Clever and romantic. No, these foppish failures were just awful. Now, I'll explain to you why he said that, right? It's so pretentious, it's unbelievable. For instance, the way it's been done is to represent these people who most people have never heard of. Now, you said what? Virginia Woolf?
Virginia Woolf, yeah.
Yeah, now, the characters in this are... Let me just have a look here. Virginia Woolf certainly is one of them, yeah? Hang on, I've made some notes. Wait a minute.
OK. Is this a sort of series it's on then?
Well, it's a 3-part series, and it's supposed to show that these are some of the most brilliant people in the literary world who were ever born, who ever lived, and who ever shaped our lives.
And some people love them, don't they? Because they loved all the books that were produced and all the poetry and everything.
Exactly.
And they were set up as a kind of an artist community and all of that.
Yeah. Hang on. Now, wait a minute. Duncan Grant. Right, OK, so it's about Virginia Woolf.
Yeah.
Now, she was a critic. She was a film critic.
Well, she was a writer, wasn't she?
Writer and film critic.
Yeah.
Because that, the film that Elizabeth Taylor was in, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf?
Yes.
That was about an actress being worried about the critique from Virginia Woolf.
Yes.
The film critic, OK?
Yeah.
So she was supposed to be the woman who could wield power and make or break your career. Then there was apparently somebody else called Vanessa Bell and somebody called Duncan Grant.
Right. And who's in this? Anybody that we would know?
Well, the Duncan Grant character is played by a bloke called James Norton.
OK.
Who was last seen as a vicar in something called Grantchester.
Uh-huh.
Dreadful.
I remember that, yeah.
Dreadful rubbish with Robson Green.
Yeah.
Utter rubbish, right? But this is utter rubbish because what happens is... let me see, wait a minute.
What does happen?
Well, nothing. This is the whole point. What happens is they all talk complete garbage and rubbish to each other about, the meaning of life.
Right.
And they all lie around on beds having a lot of Rogerisation.
Really? There's a lot of that going on? That might make it quite popular for some people.
So much so that I saw a critique of it saying that Virginia Woolf's great niece, right...
Yeah.
Even cringed watching this racy dramatisation of the lives of the Bloomsbury set because of all the squirming sex scenes between her grandparents, Clive and Vanessa Bell.
Oh, yeah.
And they think it's rubbish.
Right.
And not only is it rubbish because there's too much sex in it, but a lot of the sex is like dopey sex.
What's dopey sex?
Well, Rogerisation is a form of physical intercourse between two people. This is people lying around and, like, painting colours on each other's bodies and all this kind of stuff.
Because they were artists and they were sort of...
that's right, and all that. And
drawing each other and taking pictures of each other and all that.
And saying this is more erotic than actual intercourse, you know what I mean?
Well, they were kind of group of bohemians, weren't they?
But anyway, look, it's utter rubbish, utter trash.
So there's no point in watching any of the episodes at all, then?
Well, the first episode's come and gone, and if you missed it... it says, the awfulness of it summed up by... a scene in which James Norton and Ed Birch lie in bed kissing each other's bare arms and telling each other how much they love each other and how erotic it all is, and it all makes people want to throw up. You know what I mean?
Okay, all right.
It is all dreadful, utter rubbish.
That doesn't sound like a very good thing to watch the second episode of, then, unless you like that kind of thing, though.
Well, nobody could possibly like it. It's pretentious trash, and it's a sort of pretentious, rubbishy television. In fact, I'm just trying to find out which channel it's on. Oh, it's on BBC. Now, BBC is free-to-air television.
Yes.
and it's public service broadcasting.
Yes.
Therefore, they should produce stuff which is actually entertaining and informative.
Well, some people might like it, though, mightn't
There's
they?
nothing informative about this rubbish. In fact, I would advise the BBC, in my role as TalkSport TV critic, not to bother showing the next 2 episodes of this rubbish, because it, frankly...
Well, since they've already made it, they might as well...
Frankly, doesn't do the reputation of the broadcasting organisation any good at all.
But
okay?
you know what happens? Whenever they do a show which is sort of supposedly highbrow, but also has a lot of sex in it, then loads of people usually end up watching it and talking about it.
Yeah, but it's not real
and they write
sex.
sort of,
it's not like...
story after story in the Daily Mail about it.
It's not like the sort of sex that, you'd like to see in, say... I don't know.
Top Gun or something like that.
Yeah, Top Gun was a lot of sex in that. Wasn't a lot of sex in Top Gun, really. No, I'd say more sort of.
What about like the Tudors or something like that?
Yeah, the Tudors or something like that. Yeah, it's just very poor anyway, and a waste of airtime. Now, somebody has said to me in a tweet somebody sent me, can I keep them up to date with the Coronation Street plot? Okay,
can you?
Well, I can, yeah. We've got a bit of time here.
Yeah, we've got a little bit of time.
Right, OK. Now, the situation... Oh, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I've decided.
What are you going to do?
I've decided I'm going to take up watching Emmerdale.
OK.
Because it looks good to me. And there's a lot of very attractive women in Emmerdale.
Are you getting fed up with Coronation Street?
No, I'm not getting fed up with Coronation Street, but I just
Where
think...
are you going to find the time for all this? With
well,
all your sort of,
I don't know.
duties and all of that?
Well, it's absolutely true. No, I just feel that I should broaden my basic...
The only soap opera I ever see is like the last 3 minutes of Hollyoaks, which is on before the Channel 4 News, so I always get the end of that.
Now, Hollyoaks I might start watching. Do you know why?
Yeah.
It's based in Chester.
Is it?
Chester's my hometown, so I might go to see that. Now, what I was going to tell you was about the Coronation Street one, is that Liz McDonald... who was once...
Somebody you once had a kind of crush on, didn't you?
She was once top of the FMP list.
Yeah.
That was the first Mrs. Parry list, when there was a list. There isn't a list anymore.
There's no list now?
It's not that I've given up ambition or anything like that. It's just I've decided to put it on the back burner, okay?
Right.
But when there was a list, for many years, Liz was top of it, okay?
Yeah.
I saw her as my ideal woman.
Did you ever meet her?
Yes, I did. Interviewed her in a... we did a show in Marbella with Paul Breen-Turner, and we fixed it up in a beachside bar in Marbella, and it's, obviously it was a breakfast show, started at 6 o'clock and all that, and she lived over there then. I'm trying to think of her real name now. Bev Callard.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Bev Callard. She lived over there, and she came down at 8 o'clock, and we interviewed her live on air, and she's a lovely lady, and very, very nice and very down to earth.
Did you manage to kind of hint to her that she was top of the FMP list?
Oh, she knew.
No,
she knew. She came. That's why she came down.
Okay.
Came down as a tribute to the fact that she was top of the FMP list, and she's exactly in real life like she is in the show, down to earth, witty, speaks her mind, all that kind of stuff, excellent stuff and all that kind of stuff. Now, the problem is with Liz in Coronation Street is she's just found out that yet another boyfriend is an utter scumbag.
And all of her boyfriends are like that.
They're all utter scumbags. So the latest one...
Siren's gone off, by the way, so people may not have seen this episode.
Oh, well,
don't give too much away.
No, they will have done. They will have done, because there's 4 episodes a week. People keep up with it. Now, what's happened is, in the latest one, the boyfriend turns out to be a user of prostitutes who goes around beating the prostitutes up afterwards. How does she know that?
Yeah.
Because another ludicrous plotline in Coronation Street is one of the good women in Coronation Street, Leanne, is a former prostitute.
Right, so she knows them.
Well, this guy was a client of hers.
Oh, dear.
So you can imagine the scene when Liz is in the pub, which she owns,
I don't know how they keep coming up with all these stories.
No, Rover's Return, and she introduced her new boyfriend, Dan, who happens to be an executive at the Newton and Ridley's brewery.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And then Leanne sees him, her face freezes, Liz realises there's something going on here, gets the story out of Leanne, then tells Dan, you're a pig, get out of my pub and all this kind of stuff. He then tracks her down, stalks her, and then assaults her and locks her up in Leanne's flat because he's gone to Leanne's flat to tell Leanne's son that his mother is a prostitute. Nasty bit of stuff, old Dan.
And the son didn't know that.
Son didn't know that, and he's rather upset. Well, obviously, the son didn't know it, and so the situation at the moment is that it's all in abeyance because Dan's now holding them hostage. You know what I mean? And it's a standoff.
Sounds very kind of dramatic and
it's good
crime-ridden.
No, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. But her last boyfriend turns up at the same time, Tony.
Right.
And Tony...
Who was also a bad guy.
Well, I mean, he didn't beat her up or anything like that, but what he did was he tried through a really intricate sort of web of financial deceit to try and steal her pub offer.
Oh, dear.
By buying it...
So why has she invited him back, then?
Well, she hasn't. He disappeared. He did a runner when he was found out, but he's appeared back on the scene.
Oh, I see.
So she's contending not only with Mad Dan, right, she's now contending with Tony,
right.
But previous boyfriends include her husband, Jim, who's now serving time because he's an armed robber.
Right.
Because he...
She has pretty bad taste in men.
Well, I would say she's got bad taste in men. She had another boyfriend who was a drayman who used to drive the beer lorry that brought the beer.
Right.
She ended up with him, but found out that he was married to such an extent that he pushed her out of the window of a penthouse flat and made her stand on the ledge outside when this guy's wife turned up. You see what I mean?
Right.
And she nearly died by falling off the building and all this kind of stuff. So bad taste in men for old Liz and all that. So maybe many years ago, when she was top of the FMP, the character herself might have been introduced to a character like mine in the show. You know what I mean?
She might have done, but then you'd probably given her the wrong phone number and then she'd never be able to get hold of you.
Well, I mean, that's another story. But I mean, it's good.
So Corrie's good again, is what you're saying.
Yeah, Corrie's good again.
You said it wasn't so good.
Yeah, but there's a lot of very sort of wicked people in it.
Yeah.
You know, Tracy's still knocking around. She's already done a sentence for murdering one of her boyfriends.
It's turned into like Crime Incorporated.
Yeah, it is like Crime Incorporated. I agree. And while all this is going on, you know, there's another subplot within it all about Carla, who's the best-looking woman in Coronation Street by a mile, and the best sort of possibility as an FMP because she runs her own business. She runs the knicker factory, and she employs the knicker stitchers. You know what I mean? She's gone mad and started massive gambling, so she's bankrupting herself through casinos and gambling and all that. It's another great plot. Another great plot. So Coronation Street, good. But the other one, the Bloomsbury set thing, what was it called again?
Something about 4 squares.
No, Life in Squares.
Life in
Utter
Squares.
rubbish. It's on BBC Two, by the way. Don't even bother watching it. Don't even bother switching on your telly. It's a waste of electricity to power your telly to watch it. It's that bad. It is trash. Utter rubbish.
Thank you very much indeed. That was Porky Vision. There'll be another Porky Vision episode coming up same time next week. Coming up next, though, I'm going to be telling Porky why Rory McIlroy should still be on the losers list. This is TalkSport.
Ooh.
TalkSport, we are the two mics, and of course tomorrow it's Porky Quiz Night, and the Beach Boys is the subject that you're going to be quizzed on.
Yeah,
and,
I've been researching that.
Oh, good.
Fascinating.
Good. Because,
it's a fascinating story, the Beach Boys story.
Yeah, it is a fascinating story, and I'll get the questions tomorrow, and we'll see how well you do.
And the reason I'm doing it, of course, is because the film is out at the moment, the Beach Boys film, okay?
Yeah, it is, absolutely right.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about Rory McIlroy, because you might remember before the Open, before the Scottish Open, in fact, when he damaged his ankle ligaments, you were sort of praising him for being one of the lads, and isn't it great that he can go and kick the ball around? You see that now he has declared that he won't be fit for next week's WGC Bridgestone Invitational in Ohio, which he won last year, and he's possibly not going to be able to play the final
the PGA.
The PGA either. Yeah. So he's obviously in quite a bad way. Now, we've talked about this a lot in the sense that, you know, I said he was kind of irresponsible for doing what he did.
Yeah.
It was unfortunate that maybe he had an accident that damaged his ankle more than he would have expected it to. But, you know, this is really going to be a massive problem for him, isn't it?
Well, I'm starting to move towards your view of this now.
Yeah.
Because I said originally, oh, come on, he was having to kick around with his mates. That makes him a really genuine boy. And, just imagine how his mates would have been enthralled at, playing with their old mate who used to be just a mate and is now the greatest golfer in the world.
Yeah, world number one.
But if he has now literally put a huge question mark over the future of his career, then it was a real mistake to have done what he did.
I think he
has.
A
real mistake.
And as much as we don't know quite how serious the injury is, I mean, it's obviously reasonably serious and serious enough to keep him out of yet another tournament that he should be playing in, and possibly out of another major which he should be playing in. He won't be able to keep his number one position for very long if this carries on.
No, unless Spieth starts winning on a regular basis again. Right. He was very close to winning, wasn't he?
Yeah.
What I'm thinking is that, fortunately, he's still so very young that he will make a full recovery from this. Yeah. And, I always think these things, right? You know when a great footballer at a young age breaks a leg or something like that? And it happened, in fact, to Ross Barkley at Everton. Yeah. He had a terrible break in a game between Everton reserves and Liverpool reserves, And I always wondered to myself, would a serious injury like that diminish your skill and your talent as a footballer?
Well, it could have a huge effect on the psychology that you've got.
Well, I'm not talking about psychology. I'm talking about the physical ability to do what you did before. Yeah. Right? Now, this is even more important for Rory McIlroy. I mean, what I'm saying is the genius ability that you have to get to that height of your sport, and I'm talking about both Ross Barkley playing for England and Rory McIlroy being the world's #1 golfer, is it all in your head, or is there a little box somewhere in your body which contains both the physical and mental ability to do that job? And if you break up the mental, if you break up the physical side of it, does that diminish your ability to do it?
I mean, I think it's affected a lot of sportsmen in various different ways. If they've had a bad injury that's kept them out of the game for a while, then psychologically it takes them a while to get back to normal. But also they might feel that they can't do the things that they used to be able to do. I mean, if you look at, Torres when he was playing for Liverpool, then when he went to Chelsea, he kind of wasn't ever really as good, and he wasn't able to recreate that.
No, he wasn't.
And some said it was because of an injury he had. Michael Owen had an injury to his hamstring, was never as quick.
I agree.
Rory McIlroy might find that when he does finally recover, that he can't put as much pressure on his ankles as he used to.
Or psychologically, he won't let himself swing the way he wants to in case he does put all that pressure on that ankle and he thinks it's it's susceptible to going again.
Yeah, and it happened to Tiger Woods, really. Because, I mean, Tiger Woods' problems began when he started having more and more injuries, and then he had that operation.
The last major he won on a broken knee, didn't he?
That's right, yeah.
And he was out for 6 months after that. And during that 6 months, his domestic life fell apart. Yeah. Because you have to assume, because he wasn't playing golf, he was spending more time doing the things he shouldn't have been doing in his private life, and that's how it all came to light in the end.
Exactly. But also he became incapable of playing the same kind of golf after the injury because he just couldn't do it anymore. Yeah. That's part of the problem. So, I mean, I hope for Rory McIlroy's sake that this is not going to keep him out for a long time. But it looks like it is going to keep him out for longer than anybody ever thought.
The footballer who most damaged his whole career through injury was Paul Gascoigne. Yeah. It was self-inflicted. We all know about that. He was completely out of control. Yeah. When you get a few minutes with Gary Lineker one day, talk to Gary Lineker about that cup final because he was lined up in the same team. And he said Gascoigne had completely lost it right from the start. He kissed Princess Diana's hand. Yeah. Nobody did that in those days. You didn't touch royalty and all that kind of stuff.
But he could get away with it, though, because he was Gazza, couldn't he?
Well, he was Gazza, and B, he was so hyped up. Everybody could see how hyped up he was. Yeah. When he went in for that tackle, terribly mistimed, and in those days the surgery to repair a cruciate ligament injury wasn't anything like as good as it is today. Yeah. So he never ever recovered, his athletic ability. But during the time he was injured, because Paul Gascoigne didn't have the benefit of a great education, boredom set in very, very easily. If he couldn't get out on a football field and start running around.
And he couldn't run around, he couldn't train.
Couldn't train. And you ask any footballer, Mike, the worst part of their career is coming back from injury. Yeah. Because it's such a slow process. When you've got a cruciate injury, you have to spend, months literally treading water. Yeah. They put you in water baths so that you've got resistance against your leg when you're pedalling inside a swimming pool and that kind of stuff. It's very boring.
But it's still not the same as playing the sport that you want to play.
It's nothing like it. Yeah. When you're recovering from injury, you have to do it on your own because managers will not have injured players with the group who are training for tomorrow's game. It's like a curse, Right. So it's like bad omens and all that. So you do it on your own. You've got to be mentally very strong to come through. Now, Paul Gascoigne was not looked after properly when he had that injury by officials in those days. And he went back to Newcastle.
What, you think they should have done more for him?
Well, I don't think people understood the extent of the injury in those days. But he went back to Newcastle because he was a Spurs player, obviously, in those days, and presumably living in the south of England. And he spent his time literally wandering around Newcastle, in and out of bars, in and out of clubs that had slot machines because he got addicted to slot machines. And on one occasion, he was in a nightclub one evening when he slipped off the pedestal where you stand up to go to the urinal. Oh, yeah. He fell backwards, fell off it, and did his knee in again. And that prolonged his injury, and that was the end of his career, effectively.
Yeah, and he could never do what he had done before.
No, he couldn't. Now, you hope that Rory McIlroy has, an enormous sense of responsibility to letting this injury heal. Yeah. And looking at the boy as we know him, as much as you see him publicly in the past, you get the feeling that he's going to be very serious in trying to repair this injury.
Oh, I'm sure he is.
And there won't be any, messing around in bars or anything like that.
And it is bad luck You have to say that it has been such a bad injury that it's kept him out of the Scottish Open's kept him out of the Open. Now it's going to keep him out of this PGA, maybe PGA and this Invitational as well. But, it just shows you that, if you're worth that kind of money and you are, in fact, the world's number one, you shouldn't be doing it.
Totally agree.
As much as it's a great idea to be one of the boys,
I totally agree.
Shouldn't do it.
I totally agree. I think what's quite interesting is we haven't had a sit-down interview with Rory McIlroy yet explaining what happened, have we?
No.
We haven't had what was going on in his head, what he thought initially the injury was, when did he realise it was so serious, how bad it still is, how he thinks it will affect him psychologically. I mean, the other thing is, of course, being a golfer and you've got to walk, 6 or 7 miles every time you play, you've got to be quite physically fit anyway. So presumably he hasn't been able to keep up his levels of fitness and all that kind of stuff.
No.
And I mean, I assume he hasn't been able to practice his swing ever since his ankle went.
He won't have been able to because they won't want to have him sort of damage it too early when it hasn't recovered properly.
So even when he comes back, would you say he's going to need a good 2 or 3 month period to get his golfing prowess back to this sharpest point, even when he comes back?
Yeah, because even before he stopped playing, he wasn't playing sort of brilliantly. He wasn't winning everything that he was going in for, was he? He was kind of,
he's had a pretty good run.
No, yeah, I mean, he's always up there, but he wasn't, he wasn't winning majors or anything like that. So, we shall see. But very, very expensive injury anyway.
Yeah, and what I feel most for him is that, he's got to watch the television, presumably, and when he sees other golfers winning these titles now, and he's not even allowed to pick up a golf club at the moment, the frustration factor must be enormous.
Oh, it must be, yeah.
It must be driving him mentally mad. I mean, I bet you he'll need a psychologist to help him get through all this because of the mental torment of having inside his body the talent of the world's greatest golfer, but not being able to exercise that talent in any form whatsoever because of a physical damage to his body. That must be the height of frustration.
And I know that financially he's probably not got any worries, but he's also got an entire entourage of people that work for him who have to be paid while he's not actually earning anything.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Now, listen, we're only a few hours away, aren't we, from the resumption of the Test match?
We are indeed.
So go on, you tell me what you think's going to happen now.
Well, I mean, as we heard from our man who was on in the first hour, Tony Shebeki, he said, well, the Aussies have to get some very, very quick wickets, otherwise England are just going to march on. Yeah. And I would suggest that it's the thing about this Test series is that you can't really predict how the batsmen are going to perform because both Australians and England's team have collapsed without really any warning. So I'm going to say that, like you, I probably would hope that England are going to win this particular Test, and I imagine they're going to march on and get the 3 runs that take over Australia, and they'll probably stay in all day, I would think.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that game finished at just the right time yesterday. England were on the brink of a collapse themselves.
Right.
You see what I mean?
It could have been, psychologically damaging.
But they've now got 7 wickets in hand. They're only 2 runs behind, aren't they? 3 runs behind, that's right. And I totally agree with you. The sense of panic about, oh, hell, are we going to collapse, has now gone overnight. Right. They start tomorrow with a good captain's talk before they go out onto the field, and Mr. Bayliss, the England coach, telling them, to pull themselves together and show sheer resilience out there on the crease. I think England have got a great opportunity to build up by this time tomorrow when we get together again tomorrow night or tonight to sit down and do another show. I think England should be 280 runs ahead.
280 possibly, yeah, I'll say about that as well, about 300. But if they are 300 runs ahead, is that enough, though? Is that enough to actually, make sure that Australians never get back into position?
Wouldn't they declare then the following morning on about 350 or something like that?
Yeah.
And then...
Well, they've then got to avoid a draw because the weather is a problem as well, isn't it? I mean, if it starts raining a lot.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it is going to be a problem tomorrow because the thing is, when I was doing a bit of the breakfast show this morning with Al and Dominic, both Al said first, looking over the South Downs and glorious Goodwood, it's beautiful. I can see the Isle of Wight out there, clear blue sky.
Can you see the Isle of Wight, by the way?
Well, I didn't realise you could from Goodwood because Goodwood's inland. Goodwood's Chichester.
It's a long way
north
away.
of Chichester.
I mean, you can see the Isle of Wight from Portsmouth.
Yeah, you can, and from Chichester because it's a port. But I didn't know you could see it from Goodwood. But anyway, I'm sure you can, unless Al thought he was saying things, which of course he wasn't.
No.
But the point I was making is that Dominic Corr was saying exactly the same thing from Birmingham at Edgbaston. He said, it's a glorious day here as well. Clear blue skies, weather prediction is... weather forecast says there's not going to be any rain and all that. So...
No, there was a lot of rain.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So who knows? It's a very unpredictable situation. Only time can tell.
Yes. And the good news is, of course, that the Spitfire pilot that you managed to help out was able to watch the first day on Sky because you managed to get him sorted out with them.
Do you know what? I wanted to say thank you to all our listeners who got involved in that and sent their good wishes in, because we managed to help the 97-year-old Spitfire pilot who couldn't watch the telly because he had a telly at home, but he only had BBC, and Sky Sports jumped in there and got him a facility to watch it. And it was great from all of you. Thank you for all sending your best wishes to... I've forgotten his name now. Was it Ted Wilkinson?
Was it Ken, wasn't it?
Ken Wilkinson.
Yeah.
Ken Wilkinson, sorry, the 97-year-old Spitfire pilot, because it made his day, and it was relayed to him. How many of you, sent your best wishes? So thank you very much indeed. It was
Porky's good deed of the year, really.
Well, it was nothing to do with me. I was just happy to help, and I only had a little part in it. It was Sky Sports who actually made his day. Well done to them.
Indeed, and you'll be back tomorrow and a Porky quiz on the Beach Boys of course. This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mikes.
Look at the light! Don't forget to come back tomorrow for another sparkling, as fizzy as a bottle of champagne podcast from the Two Mikes. So the Black Macaw snatches this guy's camera, takes a selfie of itself, right? But he gets the camera back. The US Copyright Office said that copyright can only be protected by works produced by human beings.
Yes, I suppose that's
and that
fair
monkeys have no copyright rights.
So is the monkey suing now, then?
Well, no, but I mean, that's another dreadful abuse of animal rights, isn't it? I know that the world is going to collapse under the weight of fat people. The globe itself might implode.
If you love the Two Mikes podcast, you'll love the live show. Weekday overnights from 1am on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM and via the TalkSport app. TalkSport, your Premier League station with exclusive commentaries every weekend.
What an absolute corker!
TalkSport.